Okay. We are live right now. Okay. Okay, how's everyone doing? Starting way early today. I know a lot of people have requested I start these streams earlier, and okay. Post this right here on Twitter. Okay, hello, hey everyone, how you guys doing? Yeah, really early stream today. What the hell? What? Okay, Oh, I'm gonna have a video on Battlefield 6 later today. I got a cool cosplay for it, so we'll do a video on Battlefield 6. We'll do it. Yeah, Liberty City Stories can be a lot of fun, Josh. 4 o'clock? Are you talking about that reference to The Sopranos? Battlefield 6 single player sucks. Is it really bad? Well, I'm gonna do a playthrough of the story later today. Hopefully it's good. Can I stream the multiplayer? I could, sometime in the middle of next week. Next week I can do it. We can do that. It's worse than Modern Warfare 3. Is it really? Is the story in Battlefield 6 really that... I mean, don't spoil it for me, guys, but is it like, really bad? Like, because I was really looking forward to that storyline. It's worse than Modern Warfare 3? Really? It can't be that bad. Is Sniper Elite 3 buggy? It can be, I guess, yeah. The more annoying thing about Sniper Elite 3, instead of it being buggy, is that the NPCs in Sniper Elite 3, they have the most insane accuracy. I think that's the most annoying thing about Sniper Elite 3. The enemies just have perfect, insane accuracy. For a sign of the times, you should hold off on that one for now. You should do that after you take down the Southern Union and all the lieutenant districts. Okay, I mean, I could try to do that, I guess. Then, London, thank you for the super chat. I know there's a conversation I have with the priest. It's like an optional thing, but I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that without starting the main story up. IGN gave it like 5. Is it worse how is it worse than Modern Warfare 3? Has anybody here in the chat played the Battlefield 6 campaign? Like, has anybody played it? Has anybody tried it yet? Sign of the Times is purple. I know that, London, but the problem is I have to talk to that priest for an optional mission, and I want to do that, but I'll have to figure out how do I talk to him without starting up Sign of the Times. I'm gonna see if I can somehow do that. I played for an hour, and how was it, Zhao? Without spoilers, is it okay? Oh, okay. 1 second here. Let me look at chat again. What AI? Play Battlefield, not this boring game. I'll play Battlefield a little bit later. I'll do a playthrough of it. Okay, London. But why should I save Sign of the Times until the end? Like, the campaign gives you 0 context between missions, huh? They're used by the Capirote Witch, or Catholic robes in Spain. I didn't know that. TRT, SB. Hello, professional. First time on your streams. Hello from South Africa. Hey, Wolf Cowboy. How are you, dude? Any word of reacting to Mr. Saint's Godzilla videos? Let me actually look at his video, because I left him a comment like 2 weeks ago, and I asked him if I could react to it. Let's see if he replied to it. Let me just see that really quick here. Let's see. Oh, he did reply to me. He replied 11 days ago. I just guess I didn't see it. Yeah, he said it's fine if I react to it. Okay, yeah, so I could probably have a video. Next weekend, I'll have a video reacting to it, fully. This weekend, we have that Henry lore video, but next weekend, I'll have that long video reacting to his video. Hello, professional. Hope, I've been busy and passed all of my college courses. Now just looking for a job. Hope you've been well. Hey, Lee, hey, Lee Burr. How are you, dude? I hope everything works out good for you. Thank you for being a member of my channel for 4 years. Thanks, dude. Okay, London. But, London, why should I leave off that DLC until the end? What's the reason for that? Am I gonna do the Battlefield 6 campaign? Yes.
Here's the going rate.
Maybe, but the takedowns in Manhunt are way more brutal still. You know, I think my favorite takedown in the Manhunt series is probably the one where, in Manhunt 2, when you go to that hotel, and then there's that neo-Confederate gangster, and he goes to, like, the phone to call for backup, and then Danny comes up behind him and just, you know, strangles him with the phone. I think that was the best execution in Manhunt 2, or at least one of my favorite ones. But yeah, Manhunt 2, some of those were pretty brutal. Hey, Zura. Yeah, Mafia 3 was my first time playing it. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun with the game, too. Most missions locations take place in French Ward, Frisco Fields, and Tikva Harbor. Okay. Hey, Pro, I'm enjoying your videos, Mafia 3 playthrough. I like when you talk history. You make any lore videos of Mafia 3 when you're done playing through it? I'm not sure on the lore videos. Right now, I'm working on the Henry lore video, and then I'm going to work on the Tucker lore video for Days Gone, and then also the Zero lore video for San Andreas. But I could try to see if I could fit in a Mafia 3 lore video in there. Oh, hey, Aiden Jensen. Thank you for sponsoring my channel. Thanks, dude. Danny is scarier than Cash. Yeah, I think that Danny is scarier than Cash. I will agree with you on that. Because the reason that Danny is scarier than Cash is because Danny is just so unpredictable. That's the scary thing about him, with that whole, you know, Leo split personality he has with the Pikmin chip. Yeah, I think, yeah. And the thing about Danny is, when you look at somebody like Danny, you don't imagine him to be like a serial killer, like somebody like that. Like, he's like, you know, a skinny guy with glasses, very like very geek person. You don't expect somebody like that to be a serial killer, but that's basically what's so scary about him too. Like, Cash is like, you look at him and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's like a hardened criminal, he's been in prison. But like, you know, Danny, he's just he's an unpredictable person, and he's a pretty terrifying person. Yeah. I think you criticizing Henry is kind of unfair. Well, Zura, the only thing I would ask you is to watch my Henry lore video when I release it, because I explain my reasoning more in it. I came in and you said there was something wrong with the Sign of the Times DLC. No, there wasn't something really wrong with it. The problem is that I have, there's an optional mission where I talk to the priest, but I can't do that without triggering Sign of the Times, because he's in the same building, and I think if I try to talk to him, I think it's going to trigger Sign of the Times instead of the optional mission. And so I don't know, you know, what to do now. Lendon is telling me to do, like, the first mission of Sign of the Times and then talk to him, but I guess we'll see. I hope you're doing well, brother. I've been rewatching your GTA lore videos. Have you played much of the Strange Tales of the West on Reddit Online? Strange Tale of the West. Can you just remind me which missions are those? Which ones are those? Are those like the new ones that were recently added? Danny is Zero by any chance? I've heard that theory before. He looks very similar to Zero, but I don't know if it's true. Wait, Mr. Green, what were you trying to tell me? You deleted your message? Were you trying to tell me something? Hey, Robert. No, I don't think that when I do my Zero lore video, I'm gonna probably make a separate video for Zero character analysis, and then Zero video for if he's Danny. That's what I'll make one. Hey, Eamon. What is the Zero lore video gonna be about? It's gonna be more about talking about his feud with Berkeley. The enemy faction is called SOTT, which is the White Pact Event Salagante. I don't know, Zach. I'm always open to anything. I'll see what I can play on Halloween. Halloween's, what, 21 days away? 3 weeks away. Is Liberty City an accurate representation of New York? In GTA 3 and Liberty City Stories, no. If you're talking about GTA 4, GTA 4 is the most accurate depiction. And GTA 4, the map of GTA 4 is actually roughly what New York City looks like, where you have, you know, Brooklyn on the right side, Broker, you know, Brooklyn on the southern part, on the south right, east, and then you have Queens to the upper part of that. And then you also have Manhattan, Algonquin to the left side. In the middle, you have Bohan, which is Bronx, to the north of Manhattan. You have New Jersey to the left, which is Alderney. However, though, the map is missing a lot of stuff. What the map is missing is the map is missing Staten Island. It's also missing Long Island, you know, upstate New York. A lot of stuff to it. Is Empire Bay accurate to New York? No, not at all. there's
Make their acquaintance. Pop 'em in cell.
the Brooklyn Bridge goes to the left side of the map, which no, Brooklyn Bridge would be to the right side of the map. No, it's like the Brooklyn Bridge is leading to New Jersey. It also Empire Bay has mountains, which New York City does not have surrounding mountains. It also has like this giant dam, which no, it doesn't happen. No, so Empire Bay is based on New York City, but it does not look like New York City. No. Thoughts on the Germans? Thank you, son of a pirate. Well, what do you mean? It's just a different nationality, different country. Can't believe Pro is streaming this early. Last time he did, my soup was still warm. Yeah, I guess people aren't used to me streaming this early, but I streamed early because I was asked by a few people if I could start the stream earlier today in Reddit, and I was like, sure, I can do it today earlier. Shoreside Vale was supposed to be based off New Jersey. That's at least what it was supposed... Or, no, Shoreside Vale was supposed to be, it was supposed to be, Queens, and, yeah, it was supposed to be Queens. I think that's what Shoreside Vale is supposed to be, is Queens. Portland is supposed to be New Jersey. Yeah, I heard that Tropicos, it's a game where he plays like a dictator. It's like a strategy game. Oh, I'm not sure what it's French for. Hey, Mr. Waifu. Hey, Greatest Within, was Steam down a day for you? I don't know. I don't really use Steam, so I wasn't paying attention. What's your question, Manaf? My day's going good. How are you, Grace Within? And hey, Mr. Waifu. If someone offered you $1 million in GTA 5 or $1 million in real life, what are you taking? $1 million in GTA 5 or $1 million in real life? $1 million in real life. What, thank you, Anmar, for the super chat. Why did Edgar Ross betray John? Because he didn't really need John anymore. And I guess he wanted to tie up loose ends. Yeah, Donovan is a more trustworthy person than Adler. I would agree with that. He'll be at Comic-Con in Saratoga on the 22nd of November. Saratoga, New York? Is that a... I don't know. I'd have to look into it if I can if I can make it. Yeah, but he still won along with the Drifter Kids. That's the thing. No, if Xbox stops making consoles, that will be the end of them. Second most evil GTA 4 antagonist behind Dmitry Bulgarin. Thank you, Mr. 159. Excuse me, sorry everyone. Wait, you're talking about Metal Gear Solid, William? Actually, I was going to ask, can I make a video about the ludicrous business practices Xbox is doing? You mean about the, are you talking about how they're, like, charging $30 a month now for the, for their Xbox Live? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, there's some in the mine. Yeah, I could do something like that, Grius, with it. Did anyone know about Corporal Wojtek the Bear? I know the story. Thank you, Cube, for the super chat. Wojtek the Bear, he was a bear that was originally from Persia, or modern-day Iran, and he was adopted by Polish soldiers when he was a cub during World War II, because there was Polish soldiers that were stationed in Persia during World War II, and the Polish soldiers raised him, and what happened is when Wojtek was a, larger bear, he was an adult, what he was doing is he fought in the battles, in the Italian campaign with the Polish Western Army, and he actually brought over crates of artillery shells. So imagine during, like, a war zone, imagine, like, the Polish soldiers firing off artillery, and a giant bear is, like, carrying over, like, a giant crate of artillery shells and is bringing them over to the, bringing it over to the soldiers. But that's basically what Wojtek did. And that bear was the thing about that bear is that bear actually smoked cigarettes, and not only did he smoke cigarettes, he also drank vodka. So that was but yeah, the bear was given a rank. He was given corporal in the Polish army. The bear, I think, was later transferred to the zoo in London at the end of the war, and I think, like, a lot of the soldiers would visit the bear afterwards. But that was the backstory behind him. He ate cigarettes. Oh, okay. The border your country and are building an army. Wait, what are you talking about, pirate? Thank you for the super chat. Hello there, Obi-Wan voice. Hey Dante, how are you, dude? Do I think the grass rivers will be used for a lot of drug deals and stuff in GTA 6? No. The grass rivers, it's based on the Everglades in Florida. The grass rivers are not going to be used for drug deals. You know what the grass rivers are going to be used for? Smuggling. That's what they're going to be used for. Planes and boats smuggling in drugs and other stuff. That's what those, that swampy area in GTA 6, that's what it's going to be used for primarily. I guarantee you smuggling. Gangs are going to be smuggling stuff through there. No problem, Dante. Do I know Sora 2? No, I don't. Do you think GTA 6 will be bigger than Prime Fortnite? It's possible. GTA 6 is gonna be probably the best-selling game ever in like years. Like no game is gonna come close to the amount of sales. The amount of sales that GTA 6 is gonna generate, it's probably gonna generate more sales than Call of Duty has in the last 5 years in just in just a year. So it is going to be like literally the best-selling game in years. I don't think any company will come close to it. Wait, what's going on here? I can't revive him. The F are you doing? My brother died at the Battle of Hoover Dam. You were desecrating a war memorial. Thanks for being a member of my channel for 4 years. I remember that one anomalous scientist. That it's a meme. And you know that there's people who have done speedruns of Fallout New Vegas. It's like, can you beat Fallout New Vegas with Private Kowalski chasing you? Where they'll shoot that, and then they'll run away, and then Kowalski will chase them across the map, and they'll try to get the whole story done. Like, that was a... that was pretty funny one. Hey, Pat, glad you're streaming early. I will hold off my Battlefield 6 stream until after you're done. Thanks for joining my stream late night. Sheep tacos for life. No problem, Fernando. I was surprised they added the MP40 to Black Ops 6. That was weird. They added that one. Who's psychopath? Volgan, Metal Gear Solid 3, or Dimitri? GTA 4? Both. They're both kind of psychopathic. Such an early start today. Why? I wanted to start a stream earlier. People are people have been asking me to start a stream earlier. What's the next crazy current events video? I'm gonna be talking about, there's this guy who like flew to Scotland and was harassing the developers demanding GTA 6. It was just like ridiculous. It was like a TikToker that did that. Well, yes, better stealth is needed in GTA 6, definitely. Do you think that Michael regrets betraying Trevor despite how much he defends his decision? Well, it's not that I think, I know. Michael does regret betraying Trevor. I know that 100% for a fact. Because if you watch my Trevor lore video, and Michael and Trevor lore video, there's a secret conversation that Trevor and Michael can have. It's when they're hanging out. If you hang out with Michael and Trevor right after the final mission, there's a conversation where Michael will say, he'll say to Trevor, like, you know, I'm sorry for betraying you, and I shouldn't have done what I did, and I screwed you over, and, you know, I made a mistake. I should have done that. And then Trevor says, in response, he says, I accept your apology, and he says that maybe I pushed things a bit too hard, is that, you know, you had, you know, the wife and the kids, and I was just scared I was going to lose you. That's what Trevor said. You know, stuff like, that's roughly what he said in response. So, you know, Michael apologized to Trevor, and Trevor kind of admitted that he pushed things a bit too far. That was, well, my parents are from Poland, Pirate. I'm not Polish. I'm an American. So when you're saying, you know, my country is, it's not really Poland, it's America, which Loan Shark characters will you hire to be in your gang? Strauss or Bruno from Mafia 2? That answer, it's kind of easy on that one. The reason is I would hire, if I had to choose which Loan Shark to hire to work for me, it would be Strauss. And the reason I would choose Strauss over Bruno, thank you Mr. Jesus for the super chat, is because Bruno is, seems as like much more of a suspicious person. Strauss is a scumbag, but the difference is Strauss is very loyal. He's extremely loyal. You know, he would never, like, you know, betray you. So that's what I'll say about it. You know, Strauss is maybe a scumbag, but he was very loyal to Dutch. That's what I'll say about him. No, I've never worked in a game. Do you know about the Cotton Massacre? Yes, I actually made a short about that. It was a couple weeks ago. I'm from Scotland, and there's officers in my home city, Edinburgh. I remember they had to move their offices because people were harassing them over GTA 6. Oh my god. Enselagantes French. In English, it's something like a chaos cultist or a blood pack minion would be chanting in a synced matter, or a chaos power machine, huh? Well, I never played Star Wars Outlaws because I was hoping that you'd be able to do more evil things when the game comes out, but you didn't get that. Happy Friday, Pro. Hope you're having an awesome day. Hey, Final Lullaby. I am having a great day. Thank you, dude. Happy Friday to you, too, as well. I think Mafia the Old Country is my favorite one so far, Jonathan, yeah. I didn't know about that, Spain's involvement in the Vietnam War, that I didn't know about. See, PS logo, It's been 9 days since the federal government shut down. What were your thoughts and opinions on it? It's, I don't really want to get involved in the whole political drama. The only thing I'll say about it is that if you, unless you're working in the government, I wouldn't really worry about it. The only time you would have to worry about it, I guess, is if you're working in the government, because then you're not getting paid. But that's what I would say, is that the yeah, the government should reopen by the end of October. It's gonna happen, so I wouldn't panic over it too much. You know, this stuff tends to happen every number of years. Thank you, Isaiah, for the super chat. When do you think you'll play Yakuza Kiwami? In December 7th, because December 7th is the, it's coming out the PS5 HD release. I think that's what's coming out. I'd rather work for Dutch than Faustin. I get that, Emily, but I'm saying is that unless people directly work for the government, they're not really going to be affected. So I guess there's that. I know there's programs people use. How can I confuse Warhammer for Star Wars? Wait, what? When did I confuse Warhammer for Star Wars? What? What? Where? I'm confused. Well, I personally just don't want to get involved in the whole political drama, Isaiah. Wait, your membership milestone? Enselagantes French in English, it's something of a chaos cultist or black blood pack minion would be chanting in a synced matter of a chaos power marine. But what do you mean? I confused it. Which allied leaders of each nation in World War II do I like and handle leading? What do you mean handle leading? What do you mean by that? I think the best Allied leader during World War II was Truman. Yeah, I think President Truman was the best one. Um, I think that the worst Allied leader during World War II was Stalin. Oh, I was answering another question, Lendon, about Star Wars Outlaws. I just said that I was pissed that you didn't get the chance to be evil enough in it. My thoughts on Winston Churchill. Churchill is a controversial figure because his greatest accomplishment was standing up to Hitler and helping to defeat the Nazis. But Churchill. What I'll say about him is he had screwed over a lot of Polish World War II veterans that were really angry at him, especially how he. A lot of people blame him that he didn't stand up to Stalin enough, and then the other thing is, Churchill also handled the Bengal famine really badly in India during World War II. So he's a controversial figure in that, he did the right thing by standing up to Hitler, but he also, did bad things, and, how, like, Polish World War II veterans were treated, and also on top of, the famine in India. When's the first part of Battlefield 6 campaign? Later tonight, in a couple hours. Most loyal friend in the GTA games, Little Jacob in GTA 4. Thank you, Callie Bomb, and thank you, Lucio. It'll be first part of Battlefield 6 will be up later tonight. What do you think about that viral moment of the man who stood in front of the three tanks? You're talking about Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square is nobody knows what happened to that guy. The guy who stood in front of the tanks, no one knows what ended up happening to him. Can you remember the first time I picked up a controller? Yeah, PS1. When I was a kid, yeah. I gotta play the South Park games one day. South Korean special forces were in the Vietnam War, but this is what people don't really know about the Vietnam War. South Korean forces during the Vietnam War committed worse war crimes than the U.S. did. Like, when people think of war crimes, they typically think of the U.S. in the Vietnam War, but it was actually South Korea that actually committed the most amount of war crimes in the Vietnam War. A lot of people don't know that. Like, some of those South Korean commandos, some of those guys were really brutal guys. Do I believe the theories that Phil Leotardo was gay? No, I don't believe that. I think it was more about when he had Vito killed. I think it was more about having some regret over killing him. But no, I don't necessarily believe those theories. Hey Tony, Madeira Island in Portugal. Oh, hey Tony, how you doing? Why streaming so early? People asked me to stream early, and I decided to stream it early one day. Yeah, I'll play the Warriors in the future. I'll do it, yeah. I have a strange question, Pro. Are you autistic? I ask you as you have a very good knowledge on guns and history and seem to research a lot. I'm simply curious as I am myself and I don't... Am I autistic? I don't know. I don't. I've never, you know... I've never been tested for that, so I don't know. I don't. You ever heard of the song Strange Fruit, Pro? No, I've never heard of that one, Cayman. Do I think that Operation Rolling Thunder was a disaster? That one was Vietnam War, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you done 100% completion Red Dead Redemption 2 before? The person who created the Gambler 8 challenge is a complete idiot. No, I haven't. What's the Gambler 8 challenge, Mr. Jesus? Have you ever watched Fox News? Of course. But I've also watched CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, you know, pretty much every single mainstream media. Thank you, Isaiah, Mr. Jesus. Hey, Pro, I'm here to say I love the videos you do and all the effort you put into keep up the great work, but I also want to ask you a question. Do you have any tips for a YouTube channel? I'm building up my courage to do it. I would say for a YouTube channel, do streams also, and when you're doing streams, use a webcam, because people like to see the person that they're coming to watch. Make sure you use a mic. And answer as many questions as you can, because people really like that people answer questions. And always be yourself. Like, you know, don't put on a personality. Don't try to pretend to be somebody you're not. Don't, like, you know, make those ridiculous jokes every couple minutes. Just be yourself. And, you know, just answer questions. That's my formula. That's my formula to how my streams have been so successful. Like, you know, people don't really know me as being the funny guy. Like, you know, I'm not a funny guy. I don't make jokes, really. Sometimes when I do say something funny, it's unintentional. People just find it funny, just the way I said it. But, for the most part, I'm not a funny guy. I'm not the guy who, like, you know, talks funny things. I'm more, my specialty is more explaining things, talking about things. And a lot of people, they don't even, a lot of people come to my streams, and I'm sure there's people here that are doing it right now. When a lot of people come to my streams, they don't even watch me for the game that I'm playing. They just like to listen to me in the background. And I will just answer questions. So people will just, you know, post comments, and I'll just answer questions all stream. And that's what people like. People like, I read their question, and I answer them. That's it. A lot of YouTubers, you would be surprised how many YouTubers, they don't answer questions. Like, you would be surprised how many YouTubers there are where they will have, like, hundreds of comments and they'll barely go through any on the whole stream. You're the gaming cosplay history guy to me. Well, thank you. Pro is unintentionally funny sometimes. Yeah, I guess sometimes. Do you agree when you see videos on army size in World War II, and it's crazy to see how Germany was really big and then got completely boxed in at the end? Yeah. Well, it was Hitler's madness and Hitler's stupidity is that he wanted to fight a war against the Soviet Union, which was his ultimate downfall. You're well-informed and polite guy. Everyone appreciates it about you. Thank you, Dante. That means a lot to me. Are you ever going to do a video of Dark Viper AU again? I enjoyed those videos you did with him. Yeah, about that is, what I'm probably going to do is, I've actually talked to Dark Viper AU about this before, and I asked him, when the next GTA 6, you know, trailer comes out, do you want to, like, make a video about it, and, you know, we could, you know, possibly discuss it and, you know, give our reactions to it, and he said, sure. And what I'm gonna do is, I will probably ask Dark Viper AU if he wants to do another GTA GeoGuessr rematch, because we've done 2. I beat him in both of them, but the second one, he got really close to beating me. He almost beat me in the second one. But I could ask him, like, you know, do you want to do one last GeoGuessr before GTA 6 comes out? Because it's coming out, what, you know, half a year from now? Like, May next year, so like 7 months from now. So yeah, I could, you know, ask him to probably make, if he wants to do another video in the future. What do you love first, history or gaming? Kind of both. I like playing history games. Historical games are generally some of my favorite games out there to play. I do generally enjoy them. Finally, I found someone to talk about the economic state of the world, too. Well, thank you, Aaron. And, yeah, and Demigod, yeah, that was, there were several generals had warned Hitler about invading the Soviet Union. They told him don't do it, but Hitler didn't want to listen, and Hitler thought that that he would be able to conquer the Soviet Union, which was just stupid. It was, you know, and the thing is I will tell you this from a history perspective. From a history perspective, I still don't know what the stupidest military decision in history is, because you know what's crazy? The two stupidest military decisions in history happened in the exact same year, in 1941. So 1941, the two stupidest military decisions that ever happened in human history happened in the exact same year. The first one was the German invasion of the Soviet Union, and then the second one was Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. And honestly speaking, both of them are just so stupid. They're so crazy, such dumb military plans that I don't know, honestly, which one is stupider. I mean, which one do you guys think was stupider? The German invasion of the Soviet Union or Japan bombing Pearl Harbor? Because they were both really stupid military decisions. They were the two stupidest military decisions in history. And I sometimes I don't know which one's stupider because they were both just so stupid. But yeah, that was it. You had the two stupidest military decisions in the exact same year: German invasion of Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, and then you had Japan bombing Pearl Harbor. And literally and when you think about it, here's what when you think about this, that Japan and Germany, both of those countries, Japan and Germany, they both wanted to be superpowers. Both of them. They both wanted to be superpowers. They both wanted to be large empires. And both of them attacked two different superpowers. Japan attacked America, and it was the end of their empire. And Germany attacked the Soviet Union, and it was the end of their empire. So it was literally Germany and Japan were both trying to be, superpowers, and they both attacked a superpower, and then both of those, led to their complete downfalls. Do I think that Romania was more useful in World War II than Italy? You mean like when you say useful, you mean like helping Germany? Is that what you mean? Yes, Romania was a much more helpful ally towards Germany than Italy was. Yes, because Italy had caused Germany so many problems during World War II. There were so many defeats that they had. Italy invaded Greece without telling Germany, and it was a complete disaster for them. Like, the Italians got destroyed in Greece. And then the Italians also attacked British occupied Egypt, and it was a disaster for them also. And then Germany had to help them too. So literally is, both, Italy just caused disasters. Romania didn't have the best army, but what Romania had gasoline. And gasoline was, their gas helped Germany tremendously during World War II. So yes, Romania was a more helpful ally to Germany during World War II than Italy was. Do I think Dwight's girlfriend is an FBI informant? Dwight who? Wait, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, I thought Rolling Thunder was the Vietnam War. Is it just me? That's still sad. Saints Row is basically dead now. Such a great franchise, completely ruined. Yeah, I'm a bit sad too. But Aiden, here's the thing: is even though I'm sad, at the same time too, is I think the developers got what they deserved in the end, because that was you didn't want to listen to your community. You treated your community like crap, and then you got fired for it. So the developers paid for it. The unfortunate thing about this is that we as gamers suffered, because we're never gonna get another Saints Row game again, another good one, and that is it. So the only thing that makes me happy in this situation is that the developers got fired, because they deserve to get fired. But it's sad that that we're never gonna see another Saints Row game again. I had a history teacher back in 8th grade who was an absolute pervert, and he wouldn't teach us anything. He would just give us an assignment and say, figure it out. Ugh. Those are some of the worst teachers that you can have. And you said pervert, he's disgusting too. That's creepy and disgusting. And on top of that, he doesn't even teach you anything. And I will say, do you know what I think is the you know what I think is the best kind of teacher that you can have, the best kind of history teacher? The best kind of history teacher is somebody who likes history. The best type of history teacher that you can have is somebody who's excited to teach history. Somebody who actually likes talking about what they're talking about. And you can tell. When you have a history teacher, you can tell if they're enjoying talking about what they're talking about, or if it's just like more of a task for them. But those are the best types of history teachers that you can have, is the teachers that generally enjoy talking about what they're talking about. But also the teachers that try to make it fun. You know, when you combine learning with fun, that is the best way to learn, is combining learning with fun. And that's also one of the reasons that I made my my video game history shorts. Like those video game history shorts that I make, I started doing them recently. They're very popular. I don't really get much money from them, but the reason that I do them is because people generally enjoy them, and there's no better way to teach people history than teaching them through fun. Like popular historical video games, like when I take a game like Mafia 3, for example, and I talk about something historical that happened in that time period, like I talk about Sundown Towns, and I talk about, like, you know, who Sheriff Beaumont was based on, you know, stuff like that. Like he was based on those racist cops in those Sundown Towns. Like I made that short. That short is like 15,000 views right now, so it got pretty popular. So like, you know, talking about something historical in a game, and then, you know, showing it in the game, and then talking about the real history of it, people I see really did appreciate that format. Didn't Al Capone start a milk business? Yes, he did, I think, because he drank sour milk once and it made him so angry. That was about it. He drank sour milk and he got sick and it made him so mad that he started his own milk company. Al Capone also ran his own soup kitchens. He did that also for the homeless, but I don't think that was really the kindness of his heart. That was more about so that I guess people would like him. Did he whack the milkman who delivered it? No, I don't think so. That. And also, do you know what I found to be the most popular history topics to discuss? The most popular history topics to discuss are usually topics that people don't really know much about, or it's topics that people never really thought about things. Like, they never really thought about why something happened. You know, stuff like that.
There are things you could do to lower the price, huh? C'est parti.
Thoughts on the Louisiana purchase? Louisiana purchase is one of the best purchases that we made, along with the Alaska purchase.
Goodbye.
I never paid attention to Soviet war crimes against Poland, for example, until 63 Days. You watch my 63 Days series? Yeah. Poland did experience a lot of Soviet war crimes. Oh, Dwight's girlfriend from Tulsa King is an FBI informant. You're talking about, what's her name? The rancher woman? Is that who you're talking about? The woman who runs the ranch? Her? I forget her name. Because he had the girlfriend that was from the ATF. He dated her for a short time. But the rancher, no. She's a very old school person. No, I cannot imagine her being an FBI informant. And you have to also remember, they killed the triads on her property and they buried them there. So literally, they killed they lured the triads onto her farm and they killed them there and they buried them there. So no, she is not an FBI informant. No. nobody should be joking about atrocities that happened at Phyllis. I don't know why people would joke about that. Am I gonna do a live stream Battlefield 6 today? No. I'll do the first part of Battlefield 6. So if you're wondering single player, do it later today. Is Al Capone the reason why expiry dates are on food today? I think he might be one of the reasons, but I think the expiration dates are more to the Teddy Roosevelt and the FDA than Al Capone, but. Wait, what's wrong, London? I didn't see your comment. Hang on a second, let me look here again. Okay, I see your comment now, London. I don't know. I had to change it from top chat to live chat. Andrew Johnson is the second much worse president in America history at this point, Patrick. Yes. Andrew Johnson is a terrible American president. He's one of the absolute worst that we've had, definitely 100%. There's only one good thing that I can think of Andrew Johnson doing. He only did one good thing. And the only good thing that he did do is he purchased Alaska, which Alaska turned out to be one of the best deals ever. But other than that, he was a terrible president. Terrible. Like, when Johnson was president, during his time, the former Confederate states were in absolute chaos. It was basically like you had gangs of, KKK basically just like chasing black people, beating them up and like hanging them from trees in southern states. And the local southern police did nothing about this, like nothing whatsoever. And Johnson did nothing to stop this violence. Like the violence in the South, like right after the Civil War, it was like really bad. Like if you were a black person in the South after the Civil War, you want to get out of there as quick as you can, because it was mobs of people that were constantly attacking black people. It was really, really bad. It was really brutal, horrible. When Grant took over, Grant was like a much better president, 100 times better than Johnson was. Grant actually sent federal troops into several southern states to keep the peace, and what he did was he also had sent federal troops to polling stations so that if black people tried to vote, they wouldn't be intimidated. He also had he suspended habeas corpus for a time, which the thing about when Grant suspended habeas corpus, that basically means that the government can hold you without a reason. A lot of Southerners, I've noticed, they attacked Grant over that, saying, "Oh, he suspended habeas corpus," but the U.S. government is allowed to suspend habeas corpus in times of emergency. And what they don't understand is that the Southern states had already suspended habeas corpus when Grant had suspended habeas corpus. They were basically holding black people in jail for no reason whatsoever. And so what Grant did was he basically took any suspected KKK members and he basically held them in jail, in prison. And what happened was, when he held them in that time, the amount of violence it dropped dramatically in the South. And so like Grant sending federal troops in there and stopped the KKK madness that was going on in the South. So Grant had to do a lot to basically fix Johnson's mess. Oh, you're going to Comic-Con tomorrow. You're cosplaying as the merchant from Resident Evil 4. The guy with the hood, the guy who says, "What are you buying? What are you selling?" Is that the guy? I'm still getting used to the combat in Ghost of Yotei, but I'm getting better at it, Zombie. I'll answer your question in one moment, Callie. Let me answer Cayman's first. Let me see here. How much do I know about the Haitian Revolution? I learned about that mostly from a graphic novel series called Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales, and it was pretty brutal, not gonna lie. Yes, about the Haitian Revolution, about that, the thing about the Haitian Revolution is that France handled that so badly, and they were so stupid. The French could have avoided the entire Haitian Revolution, and they could have had Haiti as an ally instead, but they messed the whole thing up. Basically, what happened was a lot of Haitians had fought in the French Republican side during the French Revolution, And what happened is, when France was the first European country to abolish slavery, a lot of people don't know that. People give credit to Britain for doing it, but the reason that Britain gets credit for it was because France brought it back, unfortunately. But during the French Revolution, France was the country that abolished it first in the 1790s, and so they abolished slavery in Haiti. But then what happened was, when Napoleon became first consul of France, which was basically dictator of France, and then he basically became the emperor of France, he brought back slavery. So he brought back in, and what happened is, a lot of these people that were like on France's side beforehand, fought for France, were now going to be enslaved again, and the Haitians were really furious, and they rebelled against the French occupation. And so the French were stupid, because they literally could have had Haiti as an ally, as a loyal ally, because there's a lot of Haitians that had fought on their side in the French Revolution, but then they messed the whole thing up, and then Napoleon decided to enslave the island again. And what happened during the Haitian Revolution is that Napoleon was busy fighting several other countries at the time, and so what he did was he sent a Polish legions, like legions of Polish soldiers, because Poland was an ally of Napoleon during the Napoleonic Wars. He sent Polish legions to Haiti to put down the rebellion. And what happened was, when the Polish soldiers actually got to Haiti, they were told that they would be fighting against soldiers. They were told that they were going to be fighting against a well-organized force. But what happened was, when the Polish soldiers got there, they realized that they were fighting against slaves. They realized that it was a slave revolt, that they weren't fighting against an army. It was slaves and rebels that they were fighting against. And the Polish, a lot of them got really upset by that. And the reason they did was because Poland was occupied heavily by Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and when those countries occupied Poland, they tried to destroy Polish culture. Like, for example, in the German part of Poland, they forced Polish people to change their names to be German-sounding. That's why a lot of Polish people still have German last names even to this day. And in the Russian part, they banned the Polish language, and they banned the Polish religion, which was Roman Catholicism. And so they tried to Russify Poland and destroy Polish culture. And so a lot of the Polish soldiers, they couldn't do the same thing to the Haitians of what the Russians and the Prussians and the Austrians were doing to them. And so a lot of the Polish soldiers actually ended up defecting to the Haitians. And so the Poles, like, there was a huge number of Polish troops that defected from the French side towards the Haitians during the Haitian Revolution. And they were also a huge reason on why the Haitian Revolution was a success and Haiti got its independence. And what happened was, when Haiti got its independence, all Europeans were banned from Haiti except Poles. Poles were the only Europeans that were allowed to stay in Haiti. They were the only ones that were allowed. And I guess it was also to reward Poles for helping Haiti win their independence. But also, if those Polish soldiers had gone back to Europe, what would have happened is they would have been hanged by the French for basically treason, and then they would have been hanged by the Russians for fighting against the Russians. So no matter who they went back to Europe, they would have had basically everybody after them. And so that was that. There's actually a community in Haiti today that is actually descended from the Polish Haitians, and a lot of the Haitians there, they have like French first names and Polish last names, and they actually have tried to preserve their Polish culture also. But yeah, Google it, Polish community in Haiti. There actually is a Polish Haitian community, and they're actually in the schools. The kids are actually learning to speak Polish. So Haiti is not a country that you would think that has a Polish community, but it does today, and they're descended from the Polish soldiers that had fought in the Haitian Revolution. Let me see here. And let me answer the next super chat. Ever heard of the Killdozer incident? Opinions? Some people defend his actions. I know what the Killdozer was. The Killdozer that happened in Colorado. And it was like a small town in Colorado. The Killdozer thing that happened, I think it was the late 1990s or the early 2000s when it happened, but I do remember a bit about it. About the Killdozer thing, what I'll say about it is, I'm not defending what the guy did, but I'm saying is that the guy had a right to be angry. Basically, what happened when people think of the Killdozer, they basically think of that guy that was driving that big bulldozer, tank. If you ever go on YouTube and you watch that video, there's like this guy, like this video has millions of views, this guy driving this bulldozer, and the bulldozer's like armored with all this bulletproof armor, like nothing could basically get through it, and he was just basically just destroying the whole town. Now, I'm not defending what the guy did. He was what he did was illegal and it was bad, but that guy didn't just decide to build this giant tank bulldozer and attack the town for no reason. It basically led up to a bunch of stuff. What happened was the guy was like a working class Colorado man who he had saved up his entire life savings to buy a business. I don't remember the business that he was running. It was some kind of industrial business. I think it was like a tire repair shop or something, some kind of welding business, something. And it was basically his dream to run this business. What happened is he had paid basically like saved up a ton of money and took out loans and finally opened up this business. Now what happened is there was some company. I gotta look up the story because I might get a few details wrong. So if I get anything wrong, correct me on this, guys. What happened was there was this company that wanted to buy his land where he had his business, and he basically said, no, I'm running my own business here. And that company kept trying to buy him out, and he kept refusing. What ended up happening is that town in Colorado was corrupt, and that company actually went to like the government, and they bribed the government, and they bribed the mayor, and the mayor was like in on a conspiracy. And what the mayor basically did was the mayor put some fines on that guy. Like he fined him something, some kind of regulation fine, but it was all BS. It was like he wasn't like in violation of anything. And then the mayor sent some inspectors to his business, and these inspectors were the inspectors at that business had said that there was something wrong with the plumbing, something with the pipes, but there was actually, I don't think there was anything wrong. I think it was just all corruption. It was all just corrupt government officials that were basically working with this company that wanted to take his land. And what the government did was they shut down his business to basically get him to sell his land. So they basically put all these, said that he was in violation of all these fees, he was in violation of all these hazards, and they shut down his business. And the government actually, what they did was they blocked off his business. So nobody could actually, his business was like on an isolated road, and nobody could actually pull into his business, and his livelihood was destroyed. And what happened was when the local town newspaper, they actually attacked that guy instead of like, because a newspaper's job is to actually investigate the story and expose corruption, but instead what the newspaper did was the newspaper attacked that guy and blamed that guy, and that guy's livelihood was basically his livelihood was basically at risk. His life's work was at that business. That's what he wanted to do, is he wanted to run his business. That's all he wanted to do. And if the government would have just let him run his business, none of this stuff would have happened. And basically one day he basically just snapped, and he just got so angry at the government and these corrupt politicians doing this to him. And what he did was he basically just, in his garage, he spent all this time welding that bulldozer, and he went through the bulldozer, and what he did was he destroyed like the local newspaper building in the town, the media that was like slandering him. He destroyed the mayor's house. He destroyed the chief of police's house. I think he also destroyed the bank's house, which is a bank who tried to take his land, the bank's building. And so he basically went after all of the people that he had felt had wronged him. I don't think he killed anybody. In that whole thing, I don't think he actually killed anybody. What happened is when he was actually trying to destroy like one building, the bulldozer got stuck, and he basically built that hatch where he couldn't open it from the, and he knew that it was over for him, and what he did was he just shot himself and killed himself in the bulldozer. And so I'm not defending what the guy did. I'm not defending him, destroying, half the town. But the only thing that I'm saying about that situation is there's more to the story, because when people just watch the video, they just basically think, oh, this crazy guy with this bulldozer, destroying the town, but they basically don't look at what led up to that, what caused that in the end. So again, I'm not defending his actions. I'm just saying that whole thing could have been completely avoided if the corrupt town had basically just let the guy run his business and had not tried to interfere with his livelihood, and all these, greedy companies that tried to take his land. That the whole thing could have basically been completely avoided. And the crazy thing is, nobody got charged for that. The mayor didn't get charged for the corruption. The town didn't get charged for that. The greedy companies that tried to force him off his land, nobody got charged for that in the end. So nobody in the government, was arrested for that or charged for that. But it was a really sad story, because it was none of that would have happened if the guy would have just been allowed to run his business, and the guy just snapped one day and decided to take his revenge out on the people he felt wronged him, and he ended up killing himself too, and half the town was destroyed too. So that's the really sad thing with the Killdozer. But that's basically my opinion on it, Callie. Do I think his actions are justified? No. I don't think, doing something like that is ever justified, but I understand why the guy was angry. And I understand why he snapped in the end. That I do understand too. You gotta understand is that this was the guy's livelihood, and the guy was, the guy's livelihood was at risk. That was basically what. They were trying to destroy his life, and he basically just snapped one day and got pissed. That guy was only attacking and trashing company property. He wasn't targeting people. I guess his bulldozer was armed with guns, though, and so it was a threat to basically anybody that was in the way. That's the thing about it. And what happened is the governor of Colorado was told about that incident happening, and the governor of Colorado considered calling in Apache helicopters to actually blow up the bulldozer, but that didn't happen. So the government actually did think about calling in attack helicopters to blow up his bulldozer, but Yeah, that was basically the backstory on Killdozer. Is it was ultimately it's a really really sad story. The only thing I would just argue about it is read about the guy and why he did what he did, because that's the thing is that even it's been like 20 years since the Killdozer incident has happened, and most people don't know about why he did that. They don't know. Like, most people, when they think about that, they just think about, oh, some crazy guy in a bulldozer decided to destroy half the town. But it wasn't just some guy doing it for no reason. It was a bunch of built-up anger that happened over time, and corruption, and destroying his business, and one day the guy just snapped. Let me see here. But what do you think about it, Callie? Did I answer your question there? Same goddamn leg. Agent Sanchez's head explodes. Yeah, Steve Haynes gets shot in the leg again. I remember that one too, and he shoots Sanchez in the head. Thank you, somebody32, for the super chat. He got shot in the leg on, yeah, during a Humane Labs raid, and then he got shot again during that. My cosplay is the merchant. I keep dozens of the Resident Evil games and movies under my robe, and then when I open my robe, people can see all my merchandise, and I go like, what are you buying, stranger? Well, I do more live streams with 76, Fallout 76. Yes, when the when the Ohio map expansion comes out in December, I'll do it. Have I ever visited any theme parks? Yeah, I visited Six Flags in the past, but I haven't been to a theme park in a very long time, many years. What are your thoughts on Yugoslavia under Tito? Here's what I'll say about Tito. Tito was not a good man, but I will say this about him. Tito was the smartest communist leader out there. Out of all the communist leaders that existed in history, Tito, I would 100% say he is the smartest communist dictator that has ever existed in history. Tito, the reason that Yugoslavia was like the best communist country to live in was because Yugoslavia did not hold their people against their will. So if Yugoslavians were allowed to freely travel to the West, so if like you were Yugoslavian and you wanted to go on vacation to America, you could do that. You weren't. It wasn't like the Soviet Union where you were only allowed to visit like other communist countries. Yugoslavia also traded with the West and the East. So they traded with both communist countries and the West, where the Soviets primarily only traded with communist countries. Yugoslavia also built industry, and they exported that industry to other countries. The Soviets never really exported their industry to other countries. The only thing the Soviets exported was really gas at times. But one of the Yugoslavia's most successful exports was the Yugo car. The Yugo car, remember those cars back in the 80s and 70s? The Yugo car was not a good car, but it was a very simple car, and it was a car anybody could afford. Anybody could afford a Yugo, and that's what was so good about it. And that was like Yugoslavia's best export. And so that's why Yugoslavia was a very, a much more successful communist country. It still wasn't a good country to live in. For example, you would have a much better standards of living in any Western country. But out of all the communist countries, if I was forced to live in a communist country, I'd rather choose to live in Yugoslavia than to live in any other communist country, because at least the standards there were somewhat better than other places. But that's basically what I'll say about Yugoslavia. It's Eisenhower's birthday's coming up. Oh. Well, North Korea never lets their people leave. Yeah, no. I was watching some of your streams from 2017, and you sound much happier now. The reason that I sounded kind of like depressed, or I don't even know if I would use the word depressed, but more unhappy. The reason I was kind of more unhappy in 2017 was because in 2017 I had a lot of things going on. In 2017 I had I was going to college. I was also working in retail, like, I was working in retail like 5 or 6 days a week, and I was also doing my YouTube channel, and so I was doing all these things. And when I used to stream like 4 or 5 times a week, and then I would also make multiple videos in a week, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that with the college and the and also my retail job, and it was just overwhelming me, and it was just too much for me. And that was it. And putting it to like 2 streams a week is way better for me now, because it makes me relax more, lets me put in more effort into videos too, and I'm not working in retail or going to college anymore. It's put a lot more better on my mental health. You gotta do something like Dark Viper's Rambles, except it's you talking about world history. Regardless, keep up the good work. Thank you, Krungus. I guess I'm kind of doing that with the new short series. I don't know if I could do it in a longer video. I don't know if I'd be able to talk for that long on that one. But I'm doing it kind of the new video game history series on my shorts. Have you guys seen my video game history shorts? Do you guys like it? And Mafia 3 isn't the only game I'm gonna do video game history shorts on. Anytime I play a historical game, I'll do shorts on it, history shorts in the future. Wait, he's oh, there he is.
Swore I saw something. I'm gonna whoop you good. I'm gonna string you to the nearest tree with this. Jesus Christ. Let's hope I don't get myself free. Shit, damn it.
I once met a Japanese woman who had like a Polish last name, and when I asked her about that, she said her grandfather was rescued as a kid from those camps by Japanese troops, and he stayed in Japan. Then her grandfather must have come to Japan in like the early 1900s. That would have been like roughly like 1920 when he came to Japan. Yeah, 1920. It would have been a little bit after World War I. It would have been right around there. And that's the thing, is that Japan does some has historically done some really horrible, evil things, but that was actually one of the few good things that the Japanese army did do, and that was they saved thousands of Polish kids from work camps in Russia. That was it. What basically happened is that when Russia was the Russian Empire. A lot of people don't know this. The first gulags were not built by the Soviets. It was actually built by the monarchists in Russia. They were called katorgas, which basically is just a monarchist gulag. And what happened is, if you were like in Russian-occupied Poland, it was illegal to actually speak Polish. You had to speak Russian. And the Polish language was banned. They were trying to basically destroy, Polish culture. And there was underground schools set up where they would teach their kids Polish to be able to preserve their culture. Now, if the Russian authorities had basically found that school, they would basically deport that entire family to work camps, including the children, and they would separate the children, and they would send them to work camps very far east of Russia so that they couldn't come back to Poland, like very, very far eastern part of Russia. And that it was like the very far eastern part of Russia, where it's pretty much Asia at that point. In 1920, during this Siberian intervention, a lot of countries had actually invaded Russia during the Russian Civil War. What happened was Japan was the country that invaded Russia the most, because Japan was trying to colonize Siberia. And when Japan had actually gone through Siberia, they actually found these camps where the guards had basically abandoned their posts and had left all these Polish kids to basically starve to death in these work camps. And the Japanese army actually saved all of these Polish kids. They just saved all of them, and they took them back to Japan. The Japanese Red Cross gave them medicine, food, so that they helped them recover. These kids were starving, and these kids would have died if it wasn't for the Japanese soldiers. And then when Poland became an independent country a year or two later, the Japanese government actually sent a lot of those Polish kids back, but some of those Polish kids stayed in Japan. And that's where I guess her grandfather was one of those Polish, those thousands of Polish kids that had stayed in Japan. It's kind of crazy you can trace your ancestors like that. I know there was there's another viewer of mine, Ananda. I don't know if Ananda is here in chat right now. Are you here, Ananda? But Ananda is another one of my viewers, and he is from India. He's an Indian, but his grandfather was actually a Polish refugee from World War II. And there was this Indian prince or Indian king, I forget the guy's name, but he ran like there was like one state of India that he controlled, and he had actually taken like thousands of Polish kids who were fleeing the Nazis. And so a lot of these kids and their families had actually relocated to India during World War II. And there was like one of my viewers who told me that his grandfather was originally from Poland. So that's kind of crazy that you can like trace your ancestry like that. What is your opinion on Romania under Ceausescu? I always pronounce his name wrong. The Romanian dictator. That guy was a scumbag. He was really corrupt. He built like the largest palace, I think, in the world. Oh, that guy was really brutal. That guy was evil, horrible. The guy was just a scumbag. That guy got what he deserved when he got executed. Yeah, that was just a complete scumbag. What is with Imperials destroying native culture? Just leave the cultures alone. Well, that's the thing, is empires hate when there's a different culture than theirs in their occupied territory, and they're going to try to do their best to basically destroy it. Yeah, I remember it, London. Well, yeah, well, Christopher only got away with so much because of his relation to Tony. Yeah, the North Side gang was like maybe 60% Irish, so it was more than half Irish, but it was not an Irish gang. It was a pretty diverse gang. Like 30% of the North Side gang's members were Polish, and then the other 10% were like German and Scottish. So it was a pretty mixed, gang. When am I doing Metal Gear Solid 4? I think what I'll do is I think I'll do them in chronological order. I think I'll leave Metal Gear Solid 4 for last. You're not on a blacklist, Laskiff. What are you trying to ask me? What's going on, dude? Do you think Tony would have killed Christopher in Season 1 if he knew he gave Meadow drugs? Yes. 100%. Giving the bosses, daughter drugs, yeah, oh yeah. That would 100% would be the death penalty. Alex Archer is trying to ask me something. What's your question, Alex? What's up, man? What the hell? Wait, I got killed with a bow? Butchie, what happened, dude? Was that an accident? My bad. Oh, okay. Butchie, where are you? I don't see you on the map. What's going on? Jaime Weiss was a religious psychopath. Well, Jaime Weiss was a very violent and aggressive man. But then at the same time, too, he routinely attended church. He's a weird guy. What's Archer's question, Archer? What are you trying to ask me? I asked if you could play Call of Duty Ghosts one day. Oh, yeah. Call of Duty Ghosts is my list of games to play through. I even have the Ghost Mask. I still have that. So I could, yeah, I could play it one day. Getting better with free aim. Yeah, getting way better with free aim. Ah, great. Yeah, I'll play Wolfenstein one day. Infinite Warfare, I will be open to playing the campaign one day. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 4 is only on PS3, yeah. Am I gonna play Battlefield 6? Yeah, I'll have the first part later today, yeah.
Damn it all!
Thank you, Zombie Fanatic. Yeah, it probably was. A lot of people are trying to, you know, get me mad, London. Did I think Sal Marcano killed Link and Clay's family to punish him for refusing to join him? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'll make you suffer!
You know so much about crime history, why don't you start a private intelligence gathering company? No. I don't think I'll be good at something like that. Do you think if Lincoln said yes to Sal, do you think he still would have killed Sammy and Ellis? Yeah. He probably would have killed Sammy and Ellis, and then he probably would have told Lincoln that, you know, this is what's gonna happen to you unless you work for me. That's probably what would have happened. Hey, Pro, do you still think the GTA 4 port is coming? Thank you, Jonathan. If a GTA 4 port comes out, it's going to come out before Christmas. If it doesn't come out before Christmas this year, it's not coming out. Oh, I love history. Oh yeah, Ellis's death was pretty brutal ending. So was Sammy's. A New Jersey man break danced in New Jersey town hall meeting? No, what happened? Was Tony right in sending Feech LaManna away? Yeah. Because Feech was not, about Feech is, Feech was not showing the new leadership respect. He basically expected everything, he expected people to treat him like he was the boss. And I can understand his perspective to a degree, but Feech was pushing things too much. So Tony was kind of right to put him away. Yeah, if GTA 6 gets delayed, Take-Two stock would crash. Yeah, that would probably be a good time to buy it, yeah. Mafia typically just kills people two shots to the back of the head with 38. Feech would have become a future problem like Richie, yeah. I miss Killzone. I hope that one day Killzone can come back. I really miss Killzone. Do you know much about Irish history and the Great Famine? I know there was 2 famines in Ireland. I'm assuming you mean about the 1800s famine. There was the 1600s revolt. There was a 1600s revolt by this Irish leader O'Neill, I think his name was, or O'Rourke or O'Neill. I don't remember the guy's name, but there was like an Irish lord that had rebelled against the English. It was in the early 1600s. And what the English did was the English blockaded basically all Irish ports. They burned all Irish farms, and they starved out the Irish. This happened in the early 1600s. Over 100,000 Irish starved. And then there was the potato famine that happened in the mid 1800s, and a lot of the potato famine, a lot of it was intentional. Like they were intentionally just sending all the good food to Britain, and then they were just stealing everything from Ireland, and it caused mass starvation in Ireland. And the more Irish people that died, the more they were just going to colonize Ireland and just settle, British on it. So the Irish have suffered tremendously in their history, and the Irish have been basically fighting for their independence for close to 1,000 years in history. And the British weren't the only imperialists that they encountered, but they were the main ones. The Irish also fought against the Vikings, who had raided their country several times and attacked them too. But yeah, the Irish are really brave people. They've gone through so much in their history, and it is really it's really brutal what they've gone through. A lot of people think that I'm Irish because my first name is Patrick, but I'm not Irish. No, I didn't know that, Scar. Pro, are Italian people considered white in Mafia 3? No. Here's the thing. If you were Italian American in that time period, in like the Deep South, if you had like lighter skin, you could kind of get away with calling yourself white, and they wouldn't and you could probably lie, say that you're French or British descent or something like that. But if you had like more tan skin, if your skin was more like Vito, like in Mafia 2, for example, like that, like, yeah, they would not consider you white. And the Italians weren't the only Europeans that were not considered white. Greeks were not considered white. Poles were not considered white. The Irish were not considered white. And so it was only mainly Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons were really the only people that were really considered white. Can you ask your question again, Archer? Thoughts on Call of Duty Ghosts? I think it's one of the most underrated campaigns ever. When do you do the next part? Could you read into the lieutenant's background in the kill list, including Neo-Confederate Dixie Mafia? Oh, there's info on them specifically there? I'd have to look into that, Lyndon. Was Abraham Lincoln a tyrant? No, not at all. No, Abraham Lincoln preserved the Union. He abolished slavery. Thank you, opinionated junkie. Some people, say that he has suspended habeas corpus, but that was during the Civil War when the U.S. was in an emergency at that point. Greetings from Finland. Hello, Joachim. How are you, dude? Am I wrong to call Call of Duty Ghosts a good game since the protagonist is called by his first name and not his last? Oh, no, it's your opinion. Call of Duty Ghosts was a great game. Well, Colonel Radek was a pretty interesting villain in Killzone 2. If I ever do an Ace Combat playthrough, will you play the games chronologically, like from Ace Combat 0 to 5 to 4 and then 7? Yeah, I would probably do them chronologically. That's probably what I would do. Were people with Scottish ancestry considered white? Yeah, because they would still be considered Anglo-Saxon, I believe. Yeah, so... But if anybody has ever watched that movie, The Green Book, I would highly recommend you watch the movie. It's a really good movie. It shows basically what that time period was like in the Deep South. In The Green Book, there's a part in the movie where he's driving, the main character Tony, and it's based on a true story. He's an Italian-American New Yorker. He is driving his boss, Dr. Shirley, who is a famous musician, famous black musician, through the Deep South on his tour, and they drive through a sundown town. And as they drive through a sundown town, they actually get pulled over, and the cop then says to Tony, why are you driving him? And then Tony says, oh, he's my boss. And then he reads his license and he says, what kind of name is that? And he says it's Italian. And then the cop says to him, oh, you are. And then I don't want to say it. The cop says basically a racist thing to him, but the cop basically the cop says the racist N-word to him. That's what the cop calls him. And so a lot of people were confused by that, but they had that in the movie for a reason. And it was basically a show that, like, in that time period, if you were, not Anglo-Saxon, so if you were, Italian, Polish, if you were Italian, Polish, Greek, Irish, you were not considered white. And so a lot of people, for example, they don't know that. In the southern states were with this, they had this really creepy and disgusting obsession with race, so much that in a lot of the southern states, people carried around these cards. And these cards that people carried around, these cards would basically vouch for your whiteness. It was like a really, creepy thing that they had. What these cards were, these cards would basically say who your ancestors were. So it would, like, go back to your great-grandparents. And it would, and you would have to have, like, signed witness statements from, like, friends and family members. And it would basically write about how much percent that you are white. And a lot of these states followed the one-drop rule, where basically, if you were 1 out of 32, black, you were considered 100% black. So let's say, Louisiana was like one of the most racist states, which is, what, New Bordeaux, the state, is based on. If you were, and this is how insane Louisiana's laws are, is that if you were white, for example, right, and, both your parents were white, your grandparents were white, but your great-grandparent was black, so your great-grandpa, one of your great-grandpas was black, then you would be considered 100% black under Louisiana's law. That's how it was. It was what the one-drop rule was. It was that you had to be literally 100%, like 100% white to be, considered white. So, like, if you had, like, one, it was, in most states, it was, like, 1 out of 16. So if you were more than 1 out of 16, not white, you were considered black. But in Louisiana, it was 1 out of 32. 1 out of 32, which, what percent is that, 1 out of 32? That's like what? That's like... that's like less than 5%. That's like what, like 2% or something like that. So if you were like 2% black, you were considered 100% black, and that's what these states were just, like I said, these states were just so, they were so obsessed with race, it was creepy. It was so obsessed with race. And the thing is, a lot of people that are racist today, a lot of these people are so stupid, because if they went to those southern states back then and they basically looked at those cards that they had, a lot of these racist people themselves are not even 100% white, and so they would basically have like, 2% Native American ancestry, or like 3% black or something like that. If they actually saw that, they would basically tell those same people, oh, you aren't white, you're black. And so that's what people don't understand, is that this in the southern states, this was like a really creepy and disgusting obsession with race. It was really it was really bad. And segregation was really, really, really bad. And the thing is about it is, I didn't even learn about that when I was in school. When I learned about segregation in schools, I learned about what happened during segregation, but I didn't generally learn about that one-drop crap. It wasn't until like later on I read more about it and I learned about that stuff, that is, it's way worse than what I was even taught in schools. Like, segregation is way worse than what I was even taught in schools. Like, it's just we should be happy that we didn't grow up in that time period. We didn't live in that time period. That would have been really stupid. Like, and for example, like, me, I am 50% Slavic, and I am 50% Tatar, which, my father, he's Central Asian. So, like, me, if I was in the, the deep south, and I was, like, and I had one of those cards, they would tell me that I'm not white either. So that was, it was, like, a really, it was just, like, a really bad time. Just be happy that you didn't grow up in that time period, especially in the deep south, because that was bad. Sundown towns still exist in just, how do you know so much history? I like reading it. Sundown towns still exist in small numbers. I kind of agree with you. Thank you, Opinionated Junkie, for the super chat. About sundown towns are almost all gone. There probably are a few sundown towns that probably still exist, but they're rare, maybe in some like very isolated area. But the sundown towns that still exist today, they don't exist in any town that has a highway. Any town that has a highway, it's not going to be a sundown town, because it's going to be encountering a lot of travel from different people constantly coming in. But it's going to be like those really isolated towns that are like in back roads that have like no highway connected to it. But it is illegal. Like, sundown towns are federally illegal today. They cannot do stuff like that. So if there was like any town that did that crap today, the federal government would go really hard on them today. And not only that, what would happen is it would blow up on social media, it would blow up on the internet, and that town's economy would basically crash and the reputation would suffer. So, yes, there are still some isolated cases of sundown towns happening, but for the most part, like literally 99% of sundown towns have been, have been ended. Did they call foreigners from Asia black for one drop? I don't think it was black. I think they called them colored. I think that's what the southern term was. I think they called them colored. So if you were, for example, like me, they would probably call me colored. That's probably what they would call me. So literally is it was colored, and then it was white. That's basically what they separated it into. It was yes. That's what people don't understand, is that the segregation was a lot worse than what you were actually taught in schools. It was really, really, really bad time. And it's like I said, it is so ironic, because you have so many people today that are racist, and a lot of these people, they don't even understand that they themselves would not be considered white under a lot of these southern laws. They would actually be considered colored themselves. So it was just really, really bad in that time period. I'm really happy I didn't grow up in that time period. You have the best stories. Well, thank you. Analog horror stories, what's that? The Republic of West Florida, what's that? Eddie Winter from Fallout 4. Isn't Eddie Winter that mobster that turned himself into a ghoul in Fallout 4? Is that who I'm thinking of? How can you remember so much about history? I forgot a lot learning about it. I just remember. I guess I just enjoy it. I just remember. I can't really explain it. And that is really stupid, Swag. Anybody who does something like that, that would just be really stupid. Do I know about the Soviet occupation of the Baltic states? Yeah. I know about the about that. That happened in 1940, and it happened right after the Winter War with Finland. Stalin gave like an ultimatum to the Baltic countries like Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and he had told them that you guys are gonna let us build, like, you know, Soviet military bases in your country, because that's how the Winter War started. Is Stalin demanded that the Soviets would be allowed to build, you know, military bases in Finland, and the Soviets was it the Finns didn't want that because the Finns were a neutral country, and then the Soviets were like, we would pay for it, but the Finns still didn't want that, and then the Soviets did like a false flag attack, and they blamed the Finns for attacking their own troops at the border when it was the Soviets who attacked their own troops. And they used that as an excuse to invade Finland. And the Finns really destroyed the Soviets when they invaded. They didn't, you know, end up winning the war, but the Soviets ended up, you know, suffering such tremendous casualties. That's one of the reasons Finland was able to keep its independence after that war. But the Baltic countries were a lot smaller than Finland, and they were a lot easier to conquer than Finland. And Stalin had basically told the Baltic countries, you know, if you want the same thing to happen to Finland, meaning the invasion, you know, if you don't want that happening to you, then let us build these military bases. Now, the Finns, the Baltic people had agreed, the 3 Baltic countries, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, agreed, and they agreed to let the Soviets build those military bases. And what did the Soviets do? They just invaded Finland from the inside. So once those military bases were set up, they just invaded, you know, they invaded the Baltics from the inside, and that's basically how they took over, like, you know, the Baltics. They took over Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and that's why so many people in the Baltics today, they don't like Russia, because of that crap that happened. And the thing about it is, from the Russian perspective, is like really toxic on this. It's really, really toxic, because the Russian perspective is like, oh, you know, we came to liberate the Finns, or no, we came to liberate the Baltic people, and the Baltics betrayed us, and they became toxic to us. No. The Soviets forced their way into the Baltics, and the Soviets conquered them and colonized them. That's basically what had happened. So it was, now, is it in the Russian government today, they act like they didn't do anything wrong when the Soviets had occupied the Baltics. They basically say, oh, it was a liberation, the Baltics were better, they had better standards of living under the Soviets, but the Baltics did not want to be part of the Soviets. So it was, so, you know, that history even still goes into today. Some groups want segregation back. There are communities starting to pop up. One in Arkansas, one in Georgia. Let them rot in ignorance. I can't believe that some people are supporting that, doing that crap again still. But thankfully, that stuff is illegal federally, and so nobody can do stuff like that. Why did Poland and Lithuania go to war in 1920? It was a land dispute. That's what it was, primarily over. Both countries became independent, and both countries were making claims to land. Do I think Sean in Fallout 4 is scum? You're talking about Father, right? That's what you're talking about, Sean, because he is Father. Is Father a scumbag in Fallout 4? Yeah, he is. The thing about Father is, do you know what I would say about Father is, Father is like is kind of a sociopath. That's kind of what he is. He kind of is a sociopath. And it's because the difference between sociopaths and psychopaths is that psychopaths are born psychopaths, where sociopaths are people that become sociopaths. But about him, why he's a bit of a sociopath. If you guys remember Father in Fallout 4, when you first meet Father in Fallout 4, you get this good impression. So like when you first meet him, you get this generally good impression of him, and it makes it. And a lot of people give Bethesda crap for their story in Fallout 4, but I think it was okay. But they give you this this good impression of Father, like he's like a good person, like the first time that you meet him. You're like, oh, maybe I was wrong about the Institute. Maybe all these horrible stories with the Institute are false. Like that's what the game made you think. Like when I played it the first time and I met Father, I was like thinking like, oh, maybe he's actually a good guy. Maybe like all these horrible stories about the Institute, maybe they're not real. Maybe they're just made up and stuff like that. And then as you progress through the storyline, you find out that, Father says all this propaganda. He says, we're serving humanity's best interest. All we care about is preserving humanity, stuff like that. And it sounds good on paper, but in practice, it's actually evil. It's really the same thing you think about with the Enclave. When the Enclave says, oh, we're preserving America, we're trying to rebuild America. It sounds good on paper. It sounds like, they're the good guys, but in reality, the Enclave is evil. And so it's the same thing with the Institute. The only difference between the Institute and the Enclave is that the Enclave was trying to commit genocide and basically, wipe every single, wastelander out, where the Institute isn't necessarily trying to commit genocide, but they are trying to basically control the wasteland, and they do not care about anybody that is not part of the Institute. And so that's ultimately what how I say Father is a bit of a sociopath, is because the way Father sees it is that if it is not benefiting the Institute, it is not helpful. So like the Institute, for example, they made like formulas on how to create like crops. Like they grew crops that are not irradiated, where almost all the crops in the wasteland are irradiated. Like that's the potato, for example. The potato is an irradiated vegetable. It's like a combination of a potato and a tomato mutating. That's what a potato is in the Fallout series. And so almost all the crops in the Fallout world are mutated in a way. They have a little bit of radiation in them, where the Institute has actually grown clean crops. Clean food. And you would think that if they did something like that, that they would share that with the wasteland. They would help people. If they really care about humanity, they would help, repopulate the Earth, help rebuild the Earth, help clean up the Earth, stuff like that. But no, the way Institute sees it is it's only, if it's going to benefit the Institute, then it's only for the Institute. It's for nobody else. There's no other purpose for it. That's, that's the way the Institute sees it. It's extremely cruel. It's selfish, and it's, and I would say the thing that I think pissed me off about Father the most, the thing that made me the most angry, is there's that one part in the game where Father, like, he teleports. You guys remember that one scene where Father, like, teleports outside of the Institute, and he teleports to, like, the top of the the university, and when you talk to Father, Father says, oh, it's a lost cause up here and stuff like that, and then you can say to him, Father, or you can say to him, like, Sean, I love you. You can say stuff like that, and what he basically says in reply to you, he's like, I know, it's fascinating. That's what he says, like, stuff like that. Like, he has, like, no emotion. There's, like, no emotion, like, whatsoever towards that, and he doesn't understand the concept of love. He doesn't understand what a family is. Like, it's just, he's like very, like I say, sociopathic person. He's a really bad person. And here's the thing is, when Father freed you in Fallout 4, Father did not free you because you were his parent and he wanted to free you. That's not why he freed you. The reason he freed you in Fallout 4 was it was an experiment. That's what the whole thing was. That's what he was. He was a scientist. And he basically just wanted to see what would happen. That's ultimately what it was. He didn't free you because he loved you and you were his parent and you were trapped frozen. The reason he freed you was because he wanted to see what would happen. That was ultimately what it was. It was a big experiment for him. That's all it was. And then, if you end up taking over the Institute, the reason he chooses you to take over his Institute is because he does trust you in a way, because you're his parent, and also it's because he saw how capable you are. And that's ultimately why he wants you to be the next director of the Institute. That's it. All he cares about primarily is the Institute in the end. So that's what I would say about Father, is that Father is a a sociopathic person. And you also have to remember the super mutant experiments that he did. Father was kidnapping people and experimenting with turning people into super mutants. That was the thing that Father was doing too. It was that was a horrible thing that he was doing. But you know what I wish? I wish that they would have had more dialogue on the kidnapped people, like the kid, because I know a lot of the kidnapped people were turned into super mutants. But I wish that there was like more dialogue on that. I wish that there was like more of like I wish that there was like dialogue where you would ask, like, Father, for example, like, what happened to all the people who went missing? Like, what happened to them? Stuff like that. Like, there really isn't dialogue like that in the game, but I really wish there was dialogue like that in the game. So, like, the story could have been improved. It could have been written a little bit better. So Enclave is not what I thought it is. No, the Enclave is a fascist organization. That's what the Enclave is. It is they basically believe that they are superior to everyone. They think that everyone is inferior to them, and they basically want to eradicate everybody that is in the wasteland. They want to kill everybody. The Enclave's ultimate goal is to kill every single person on the planet that is not a member of the Enclave. That is the Enclave's ultimate goal. That's why the Enclave shoots every single wastelander they see on sight. They think that they're inferior to them, and they don't think that they're real Americans. They think that they're fake Americans. That's what the Enclave is. They think that they think that they are the true Americans, and they think they're the only true Americans, and they think everybody else is inferior. They're contaminated by radiation. They're not, real humans like them, and so they deserve to be destroyed. That's what the Enclave basically thinks.
Show yourself.
If you want, there was one faction that actually wanted to rebuild America and did actually care about America, and that faction was the Free States. They're in Fallout 76, but yeah, the Free States, they actually they cared about America, and they were not these evil heartless people like the Enclave. Have I ever watched Mad Men? Hey, Final Lullaby. No. That show was on, it was like, what, the 2010s? That's when that show was on. It was like a 1950s TV show. I know about it. I never really watched it. It used to be on AMC, I think it was. But I know the show, but I never really watched it, no. Oh, crap, this target is getting away. Thank you, Final Lullaby. Hey, Pro, do FBI agents leave a note on your door if you're not home? Do they wear white t-shirts and blue pants? 2 men with badges knocked on my door. What? Well, the FBI... I know there is some protocol on what they can wear, but the FBI, I don't think they have, like, a central uniform that's, like, specifically attached to them. But here's the thing is, if police are ever coming to your house and they're in not in uniform, ask them for proof that they are police before opening the door, because some criminals, they will actually pretend to be the police and say we're the police, and they'll show you like a fake badge and stuff like that, and then they'll try to use that to break into your house to force their way in. Oh. I would say the safest thing in that situation is if you have like if you have some people that come up to your door, right? And those people are like wearing like plain clothes and they claim to be like FBI agents or something like that, or ATF agents. If you have people like that come to your door and you don't know if they're actually federal agents or not, the easiest way to tell if they're federal agents is just say to them through the door, I am calling the police. The police will be here in a few minutes. And if you are actual federal agents, then you can verify it to them and I'll let you in. That's basically it. That is it. So that's what I would do in that type of situation. And if they don't have a warrant, I wouldn't let them in the house. But I would basically say if I'm gonna call the police, and if they are and if the local police come by and they confirm that you're federal agents, then I will talk to you. But until then, I'm not talking to you. That's at least what I would do in that type of situation. I'd probably call, the 911 and say these guys are outside my house. They're claiming to be federal agents. I don't know if they're federal agents. I don't know who they are. They're wearing plain clothes. Can you please come by and check who these people are out? That's basically what I would do in that situation. Is next episode of Mafia 3 coming out tomorrow? It'll probably be out. Thank you, Pro. No problem. Suspect 13. So that's basically it. I wouldn't recommend to be aggressive with them. Just if you have people show up to your door like that and they claim to be federal agents, just say to them through the door. Say to them, do you have a warrant? And if they have a warrant, then I guess that's the next step that you need to take it. And you call the police. Say to them, I'm calling the police right now. I need to know that you are actual federal agents. The police will be here in a few minutes. And if you are actual federal agents, then I will talk to you. Stuff like that. And if they are not federal agents, If they are federal agents, they will stay there. That's basically what I'll say about that. If they are not federal agents, they will leave immediately. That's how you can tell. I just want to know that you saved me millions of dollars for your GTA vehicle reviews. Love your content. Thank you, Bill Nye. Thanks, dude. Yeah, in a way too, Ryan. West Florida became independent from Spain for a short time, kind of like what Texas did to Mexico. Really, I didn't know about that one. Or they might show their badge and ID to the door. Yes, but at the same time, is that a badge could be faked too. Most people can't tell a real badge apart from an Amazon badge, something that you could, you know, purchase online. Do I ever get salespeople knocking on your apartment door? No, never. The reason is because you need a key fob to get into the apartment building itself, and so we don't allow those type of people into the building. So no, salespeople, no. I've had salespeople come to my you know, house in the past, my parents' house, but it's been some time. They don't really do it like they used to in the back in the day. I don't know, Lendon.
What are you doing?
What are your thoughts on Nixon from Easy Company? From what I've seen, he was a good leader, but he was an alcoholic. That was Nixon's problem. Is that Nixon, you know, he was a we're talking about Captain Nixon, by the way, or no, yeah, Lewis Nixon. What rank was he? What rank was he again? He was lieutenant, right? That's what his rank was. I think he was lieutenant, right? What is this here? What if Lincoln Clay and CJ met? Probably would get along, I would say. I don't see why not. Yes, I'm making a Mafia lore video on Henry this weekend.
Alright, let's find out what went on here.
New Jersey man started breakdancing in the town hall meeting over taxes that were raised. What? Huh. Yeah, I decided to stream a bit earlier today. Well, the Brotherhood are a bunch of scumbags in Fallout 4. I like the Brotherhood in Fallout 3 much more. In Fallout 3, they were generally good people, but in Fallout, 4, a lot of them were scumbags. Hey, Pro, I met this guy on TikTok known as the Vegan King, and he is the definition of crazy. He acts like a crybaby when someone sends him a gift. He put a surface cleaner on a cut during a live? What? Vegan King. That's... Vegan King. That's... And even that name sounds cringe. Like, Vegan King? What Vegan King? That's just... I don't have a problem with people who are vegan, but it's like... People that make food, channels like that dedicated to specifically just veganism or vegetarianism, stuff like that, I just find that weird. Like, you're trying to make stuff like that. And I will say a lot of these channels out there, they act like meat eaters are, like, really, bad people. Like, just bad people in general. That's not all. He's a compulsive liar and he treats his viewers like crap. Huh. What's your take on the gunners in Fallout 4? Evil mercenaries. You know, ruthless mercenaries. The difference between gunners and Talon companies, the gunners just have way more people than Talon Company. The moral lesson of Hood movies and TV shows: the world is bigger than the Hood, and homies for life and street loyalty is BS. Yeah, just like Tenpenny said, Isaiah. And I will say, I will say that that was the moral lesson in San Andreas, because when you think about it, right, when it comes to San Andreas, right, the moral lesson in that game was that your true friends aren't always the people that you grew up with. That's what kind of the moral lesson was in that game. Because CJ's best friends were like, you know, Woozy, The Truth, Caesar. These were people that he would have never met if he had never left the Hood. And so it turns out that, like, you know, people that he's never interacted with from different areas are more of his friends than people that he grew up with, like Ryder and Big Smoke, for example, and OG Loke. Sweet was a bit of an asshole, yeah, but at least Sweet still, would never, like, betray you, you know, stuff like that. Can you answer my question? What's your question, Imperion? What's up, dude? Whoa, I never thought I'd hear you say that. Say what, Shiny Knight? Did I destroy the Brotherhood of Steel in New Vegas? Yeah, I destroyed them and I saved them. I did different things. Damn, I just hate following the trails, just running around trying to see if I can find this guy, but... Yeah, Palpatine is generally the most evil character in Star Wars. Pro, you said the Civil War was about slavery. I challenge that. States' rights played a huge role. The South had clashed with the government for years over tariffs and authority, all the way back to Jackson. Here's what I will tell you about it. The Southern states liked federal power when it was on their side. So, for example, I'll tell you this. You can look up what the Fugitive Slave Act was. You know what the Fugitive Slave Act was? The Fugitive Slave Act was a federal law which basically said that if a slave had escaped from a southern state and went to a free state, like a northern state, that northern state would be obligated to cooperate with that southern state and federally would have to return the slave back to the southern states. So that's the thing. What people don't know is that the southern states, they love federal power when it was on their side. And that was basically a violation of the northern states' sovereignty, you know, stuff like that. And that's what the southern states were doing to the northern states. And about the tariffs, yes, you're right that there was that the South had an issue with the tariffs in the past. But about Jackson actually threatened the southern states, and he actually told them that if you try to secede, I will send the military down there to crush you. So Jackson was extremely against the southern states seceding. But the Civil War was primarily over slavery. That was their main thing. It was primarily over slavery. You can't say that it wasn't. It was a states' rights thing because, like I said, the southern states supported federal power when it was there to benefit them. The Confederate Constitution even outlines slavery as a core part of it, And the Confederate Constitution also makes it illegal to ban slavery. It says in the Confederate Constitution that you cannot make slavery illegal, that states cannot regulate it, that it cannot be made illegal. And a lot of states have also made declarations on why they had seceded. Like Mississippi, in their declaration, for example, said that they had seceded primarily over slavery. So it was over slavery. That's what it was mainly about.
Next time, gag 'em, would you? All got filthy mouths, these bounties.
Imperion. The reason that people say states' rights is because they don't want to admit that it's over slavery. That's the primary reason. People say, oh, it was civil wars over states' rights because they don't want to admit that it was primarily over slavery when that's what it was. That's what they don't want to admit that their states had basically fought to preserve slavery. They don't want to admit that. They're very proud of, being Southerners, and so they don't want to admit that. That's basically where a lot of this neo-Confederate propaganda comes from. It was this whole lost cause myth that it was created like 20 or 30 years after the Civil War, and it was it was basically pushed by a bunch of former Confederate, veterans that were, old and dying, and they didn't want to be remembered in history as as going down fighting for slavery, and so they created all these, this propaganda, all this, stuff like that. And also, here's what I'll tell you something about this. Whenever I hear people say to me, oh, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. Oh, they didn't care about slavery. Whenever I hear stuff like that, when people say that, if these southern states were not so hostile towards like black people, right? Then how come when slavery was finally abolished, how come the southern states had like the most ridiculous, segregationist laws out there where they were like even had cards that would, write about what percent white you were? Like, literally, the southern states, segregation existed in the north, too, don't get me wrong. But, like, the southern states were, like, literally the most worst with the segregation. And it was, like, you had mobs of, people that were going around beating up black people and killing them after the Civil War. Reconstruction was so violent. Grant had to send the military in to basically stop the Ku Klux Klan. And so I hear people say that, like, the Civil War wasn't over slavery or states' rights. Well, then, how come when slavery was, banned, how come black people had, like, the worst lives in the... How come they were just being attacked by these people constantly in the South? It was just really bad. Like, people were getting discriminated. They were getting segregated. They were getting beat up. So, like, when people say, oh, the Confederacy wasn't racist, it didn't support, this violence against black people, well, then how come the Southern leaders in the Southern states, they were former Confederate leaders. So the people who ruled the Southern states after the Civil War, they were almost all Confederate leaders. Almost all of them. They were the same people that we fought against were the ones who ruled those states afterwards. And so how come, literally, if the Confederacy was so against slavery, then how come literally after the Civil War, like, black people had the absolute worst in the Confederacy? So, like, I hear this argument, people saying that, oh, it wasn't about slavery. It was all primarily about slavery. That was literally the main thing. Pro, I do think it was about slavery, but again, you should note states' rights played a huge role into it. And as you said, South had problems all the way back to Jackson. Literally, the states always had problems with each other. They always did. Even states today have problems with each other, too. But the main reason that the Civil War happened was slavery. That was literally the main reason. You cannot say it was states' rights. It was mainly slavery. That is literally what it was over. They were trying to preserve slavery. They wanted to keep slavery in their states. That was literally the main reason for it. And like I said, and let me ask you something this. When the southern states made the federal government, passed the Fugitive Slave Act, and the Fugitive Slave Act, like I said, it forced northern states to return escaped slaves to southern states, and they had to cooperate with southern states. Did that not violate the northern states' sovereignty? Did that not violate their states' rights, by doing that? Because that was the South violating the North states' rights. And so that was, when I hear this argument about, like, states' rights, people don't bring up, like, the Fugitive Slave Act, which was basically a southern federal law that was passed basically violating the sovereignty of northern states, telling them that they had to help southern states, find escaped slaves that were in their state. So it was primarily over slavery. Don't believe the lies there, Imperion. Is like, at the time, people were all saying that it was over slavery. That's what they literally said. Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, was a massive racist, and he was a massive defender of slavery. I gotta play Half-Life 2, and I gotta play the Half-Life DLC expansions too. I gotta play those. States have plenty of states' rights today, but you can't own another human being as property. That's not a right that any state has, and I don't count that as states' rights. That is a You can counter the states' rights argument easily. They were fighting for their right to keep something legal that was actually illegal. Yeah, I mean... I think I think one of the biggest problems that we had after the Civil War is that we didn't punish these Confederate leaders. I think that was the biggest problem with that, is that I think a lot of these people should have been put on trial for what they did. But Johnson didn't do that. And then Grant at least tried to clean up the mess. Yeah, Johnson was a terrible president. Like, during his time, there was, like, you know, such violence in the South, and he did nothing to stop it. The KKK basically controlled the entire South, and he did nothing to stop it. The only good thing Johnson did, I'll give him credit for this, at least he bought Alaska. That was the only good thing he did do. Everything else he sucked at. Lincoln did want to go easy on the South. You are right on that, Starkiller. But but look at what happened. Johnson went easy on the South, and look at what happened there. You got this, like, really horrible violence in the South. Yes, Johnson pardoned a lot of really bad people. I have a question. While many people did not know that Abraham Lincoln had views that would be considered racist today, did he treat black soldiers during the Civil War with respect? Yes. He generally did. The thing I'll say about Lincoln is Lincoln had some pretty racist views, especially when he was younger. I wouldn't put, like, Lincoln on, like, I wouldn't say Lincoln was like a white supremacist. That's not what I would put him as. But he did have some pretty, you know, pretty hateful views. He didn't support slavery. He was against slavery. But yes, it is true that Lincoln was a pretty racist person. But Lincoln kind of changed his views throughout the war. And one of the things that kind of changed Lincoln's views was just when he, I forget the name of the city. There was like a Confederate city that he had liberated. And when he liberated that one Confederate city, there were so many freed slaves that were basically just running up to him, thanking him for freeing him. And that was basically, at that point, it was when Lincoln started changing his views. And also, Lincoln did respect black soldiers. That is true. He actually talked to them, too. So he did respect them. And also, here's what one thing people don't know about the Civil War. And this is what most people don't know about the Civil War. The North did not attack the South during the Civil War. The South attacked the North. People don't know that. When people think of the Civil War, they think that the North attacked the South. But no, it started when the South actually attacked the North. It was the attack on Fort Sumter. That was it. It was a northern fort that was actually in the South, and then the South basically just attacked it. And that is ultimately what ended up starting that's ultimately what started the Civil War. Oh yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, Lincoln was a racist, while Andrew Johnson was a white supremacist. I would agree with you. Yeah, Johnson was more of a white supremacist. Lincoln was just a racist. I would agree with you on that. What do you think would have happened if Lincoln was never assassinated? I don't know really, because Lincoln wanted to forgive the southern states. He wanted to basically just bring them in to the back into the Union, and it was like a policy of forgiveness. But I don't know how Lincoln would have reacted to the violence if he would have seen like the violence in the South, because here is if you were like a black person that like lived in the South right after the Civil War, you want to get out of there as quickly as you can. Just go to the northern states as fast as you can. You don't want to stay in the South right after the Civil War. The reason you don't want to stay in the South after the Civil War is because there was just such violence in the South after the Civil War. You had like mobs of people, like mobs of KKK people that would basically just like just round up black people and just hang them from trees. It was like really, really bad. Like the violence was really bad. It was like, imagine you just walking down the street and like a mob of people just comes up and just beats you to death. That's what it was like in the South, like right after the Civil War. Like you do not want to be in the South like during Reconstruction. You just want to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. But that's what it was like in the South, like right after the Civil War. Hey, Drina King. Hey, what's up? I at 34KZ. Prof, I think the government violated northern states' rights with passing that law after Southern oppression. No, considering I'm somewhat a federalist who thinks that states have too much power. Well, I'm telling you, Imperion, that the Civil War was primarily because of slavery. It was never over states' rights. Lincoln freeing the slaves was also a business decision. Well, Lincoln famously said, if I could save the Union with freeing every slave, I would do it. If I could save the Union without freeing one slave, I would do it. That's what Lincoln said. It was his quote. But Lincoln was personally against slavery. But then the southern states just seceded immediately when he became president. And what happened was then in 1863, like 2 years into the war, he made the Emancipation Proclamation, which that ended slavery. How much power do I think states should have? Well, I consider myself a libertarian, and so I generally think that states should have as much power within reason, as long as it's not violating human rights. So I think that states should have the right to set their tax laws, their driving laws, most government policy. But it shouldn't be something that should be allowed to violate people's rights. So, like, for example, is the point where I would support like federal action against the state is I would support federal action against the state if the state was like violating people's rights. Like, for example, like suspended free speech. If a state basically said, we are not going to allow free speech anymore, then that's the point of the federal government to intervene in a situation like that, because you can't do something like that. Folding here. Well, here's the thing is, here's the thing is, creating too much of a federal system will make people hate each other. It will. So creating a federal system will make people hate each other. Or I would say creating a very strict federal system will make people hate each other. Like, I'll explain what I mean by that. Like, there was I had this one college professor, and he was from East Asia. I don't know what country he was from. I never asked him, but he was from East Asia. So he was either from, like, you know, somewhere in China, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, but I don't know what country he was from, guys. But about him is, about this professor, is when I had this professor in college, he was, like, complaining about America's education system. And he, even though, you know, our class was a science class, it was like a lab class. I forget even the name of the class. It was like 2013, so this is like 12 years ago. But anyways, about this class, right? He was complaining about America's education system, and he was saying that America's education system should be federal, that the whole thing should be, one, and that it should be, that it should just be the exact same, universal across, like, all of the states. Now, I hated this professor, and the reason I hated this professor was because he was an asshole. That's pretty much why I didn't like him. Like, he was the same guy who basically gave me a 0 on an assignment once when it wasn't my fault, because how we had assignments done in this class is we had it where we would work in groups of 2, and we would work with our partner. We would have, like, a lab experiment, and during that lab experiment we would have that our partner would do, you know, 50% of the work, and then you would do 50% of the work, and you would share both your notes together, and you would just combine it, and you would just make it into, you know, one big lab. Now, what happened to me is that my lab partner, he was absent for a couple days. He comes back to the class, and he says, you know, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I've been out sick for some time. Can you give me, you know, your part of the assignment so that I can add on my notes to it, and then, you know, and then I'll add on my part to it, and we'll hand it in together. And I asked the teacher, I said to him, is this fine? And the teacher says, yeah, it's fine. And he saw me, you know, give my part of the assignment to my classmate. Now, what ends up happening is my classmate then drops the class. He drops the class after that, and he took my assignment. So, like, the next day he dropped the class, and he took my assignment, and I didn't get it back. And then do you know what happened is that teacher didn't even let me do the assignment back again. He just gave me a 0. He gave me a 0 for that, and I've almost never had a 0 for that. I never had a 0 like that, and I've always been an organized student. I've always had everything done on time, and that really bothered me. And I told the professor, I was like, this is not my fault. And he said to me in the middle of class, you know what your problem is, Patrick? Your problem is you trust people too much. And he said that in the middle of the class, and it embarrassed me. And I was like, I hated that professor. I hated him. I really didn't like him. But anyways, about him is I kind of got my revenge on him. And how I got my revenge on him is I kind of embarrassed him talking about America's education system. Because he was talking about how America's education system is a disgrace, and he was saying that America's education system, that it's inferior to other countries, and that other countries, have higher test scores than America, and that America, in every state, it's like different. It's like in every state, it is it's a different system, and he said it's a disaster, and I said, and remember, this professor is from East Asia, where in East Asia they have, like, much stricter with their schools. And I was trying to explain to him what America's system was like. And I interrupted, and I said to him that in America, the system is very different. And thank you for sponsoring my channel, xcali9x. I told the professor, in America, our system is different than in other countries. Because in our country, in America, every single state is almost like its own country in a way. And we are, held together by the federal government. But every single state, has their own, geography, their own culture, their own customs, traditions, stuff like that, and different education system, different laws, regulations, taxes. So everything is different in a lot of states. And that's basically what America is when you think about it. America is basically, the reason that so many states have power in America is because America, the idea of it is that it was basically like just a bunch of countries coming together to form one country together. That's with the states. But anyways, I told him that in America, every state has the right to decide on their own education. Every state does. And so I said, do you think that, kids in Alaska should learn the exact same thing as kids in New York? Because kids in Alaska, their parents are going to have different values, and they're going to want to learn different things than kids in New York are going to learn. And so, like, you know, and also at the same time, too, is New York and Texas, you know, for example, are going to have different views, just as, like, Montana and New Jersey are going to, like, you know, have different views in different ways, in different things. And so, for example, if you take, like, a state like Iowa, Iowa is a very rural state. It's a very farm state. If Iowa introduced classes in high school on how to farm, like, you know, introduce that would help the students out in Iowa a lot, and a lot of students would want to take that. Now, if they try to introduce classes like that in New York, like farming, nobody would take that. It would be a waste. And so that's why it's better that, like, every state decides on its own education, because every state understands what's best for their people and how their kids should learn. And I was trying to explain that to him. And when I told him in the end, what finally shut him up is I told him that I don't care if other countries have higher test scores. And he's like, what do you mean you don't care? I said, I don't care if other countries have higher test scores, because if you look at the countries in Asia, the countries that have higher test scores than America, you look at countries like, you know, China, for example, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, these countries have higher test scores than America. That's true. But just because they have higher test scores in America does not mean that their education system is better. And this is what people don't understand. People think that test scores are everything. They aren't. Measure the happiness index in these countries. If you measure the happiness index in these countries between these other countries, I guarantee you students in America are happier than students in China. I guarantee you it 100% on that. Students in America have more freedom. Students in America have more free time to do what they want, have more time to relax, to chill. Whereas students in, like, China are going to school, like, 6 days a week, and they're forced to wear, like, these communist uniforms, these red scarves when they're going to school. It's just disgusting, you know, stuff like that. And the kids are constantly in a lot of these Asian countries. These kids are constantly pushed. All they're just told study, 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 study. The school tells them study, 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 study. The parents tell them study, 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 and nothing else. And the kids feel like they have no free time whatsoever. And that's why students in these countries have such a high suicide rate. That's why students in China and Japan and South Korea and these places, that's why students have such a high suicide rate, is because they're constantly pushed by society and their school study, study, study. And these kids never get to enjoy their childhood. When you're only a child once, and these kids never get to fully enjoy their childhood. And so that's the difference between, like, America and other countries. In America, we value freedom when it comes to education. Even if we have lower test scores in other countries, it's the states should have the right to basically decide how we run things like that. And so that's it. By making a federal system in America, making, like, a federal education system, enforcing every single, you know, state to have the exact same, you know, education standards, that is basically going to go against what America was founded as a country in the first place. It was like, the idea is, like, every single state is different. Every single state decides on what they're doing in their state. So that's basically what I'll say about that, is that it's a that is ultimately it. Is that in America we value freedom over higher test scores, and that's what he wasn't understanding. And I embarrassed him. I made that teacher look stupid in class by arguing with him on this, and that was kind of my revenge for him giving me that 0, because I wouldn't normally have argued with him like that, but after getting that 0, and then a couple weeks later this, you know, happens, I was getting pissed. And also that teacher accused American students of being delinquents, and that also, you know, pushed me to you know, really argue with him in class. That really pissed me off too. So that's what I'll say about that, is that, you know, people don't think about that. They say, oh, you know, look at Japan. Japan has higher test scores than America. I don't care if Japan has higher test scores than America. Students in Japan are going to school, like, 6 days a week, and they're constantly studying like crazy, and these kids never have a break, and they have really high depression, really high suicide rates. It's really bad. So, you know, in America, do students get stressed out? Sure. But it doesn't happen to the extent that happens in, like, other countries. And, like, one of the countries that has, like, the best, most successful education system in the world, I think it's Finland. And Finland, it's only the kids are going to school, like, 4 days, 4 hours. I think it's 4 hours a day is the kids go to school. In America, you know, we go to school 6-7 hours a day. And the kids and students in Finland have higher grades than the students in America do. And so they're not, you know, studying like crazy like, you know, kids are like in Asia. So that's what I'll say about that, is that you need to, you know, part of learning is also kids need to be happy. And if a child is not happy, he is not going to learn. A child needs to be happy before they're learning. You didn't embarrass him. You're just saying stuff to impress your audience. Well, I don't know what you're getting at right there. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't embarrassed himself, but the class definitely agreed with what I was saying there. If he hated it so much, he should have taught in another country. I agree with you. Let me ask you something right now, Imperion. You want states to be more federal. Let me ask you something. How do you think a state like Texas would react if you tried to bring in New York's gun laws into a state like Texas? Like, how do you think that, like, a state like the people in Texas would react if, you know, you tried to, for example, like, make Texas follow New York gun laws? Like, you know, for example, that's like a perfect example of like why states should decide on their own laws. And I think it would be a disaster, personally. Well, my history professors were some of my favorite professors in college. I'm gonna win this hand here. Yep, I'm gonna win this. States, the government cannot violate the Constitution, and like the Second Amendment, for example, is like a huge part of the Constitution. States like Texas and New York, I will tell you is that, and also, I don't even live in Texas. I live in the Midwest, the upper Midwest. And where I live, it is basically just small towns and just plains. There's not even any trees. There's no trees. It's just flat land. And I will tell you, the people here are very, very different than where I grew up in New York. I grew up in New York City. People are very different. Their culture is very different. Their values are very different. And I'm not saying that their value is necessarily better than New York's values. I'm just saying is that both states have very different, look at things very differently. And I will say, if you tried to force both, like a state like New York and a state like mine, to basically live under like the exact same system, I'm telling you, people would get pissed. People would get pissed in New York, and people would get pissed in my state. And so that's why, it's good that people elect their own governors. People choose in their own states on their own laws. The test scores come from blood, sweat, and tears of kids. Yeah. These a lot of these kids and a lot of these Asian a lot of these kids in these Asian countries, they're really stressed out by this education system. Sorry guys, my allergies. Excuse me. Okay. What's new on Reddit Online? Nothing. Nothing, really. Thank you, Raccoon. What if the USSR won the Afghanistan invasion during the 1980s and built another puppet state like the Warsaw Pact? Would America not have a war on terror? I don't think it was really ever possible for the Soviets to win in Afghanistan. I don't think they really could have won. And here's you guys want me to tell you something really horrible about the Soviet-Afghan war that people don't know about? I'll tell you guys something really horrible about it. Do you guys know how many civilians the U.S. killed in Afghanistan in 20 years? The U.S. was in Afghanistan for close to 20 years. You know how many civilians the U.S. killed in Afghanistan in 20 years? The U.S. killed, I think it was around 40,000 civilians in 20 years, which is really bad. But when you compare that to the Soviet numbers, do you guys know how many civilians the Soviets killed in Afghanistan in 10 years? The Soviets were there for half the time that the U.S. was there. You know how many civilians the Soviets killed in Afghanistan? This is what people don't know. 500,000? No. 2 million. 2 million. That's how many. So just think about that. The Soviets were in Afghanistan for 10 years. They killed 2 million civilians. The U.S. was in Afghanistan for 20 years and killed 40,000 civilians. Just think about that there. I'm not saying the U.S. is perfect. The U.S. makes mistakes too. But the U.S. did do their best to try to limit civilian casualties, where the Soviets didn't care. Now, how did the Soviets kill that many people in Afghanistan? How did they kill so many civilians? This is how what the Soviets did. Is if there was a town in Afghanistan, right? And that town, basically, that town had like 1 or 2 Mujahideen fighters that fired at the Soviets. Do you know what the Soviets would do? the Soviets would basically take a fleet of Hind attack helicopters, and they would just raze that entire village, blow up the whole thing, destroy the whole thing, kill every single person in the village. Did you see America do stuff like that in Afghanistan, where we would literally just genocide entire villages? I know that we've made mistakes. Civilians have died in drone strikes, and it's bad, and it should be condemned. But we didn't do stuff like that, where we, you know, mass murdered entire, you know, towns. The Soviets did stuff like that. So people don't know about the Soviet-Afghan wars. The Soviet-Afghan wars were a lot worse than what you thought it was. No, it wasn't 40 million. It was 2 million. The Soviets killed around 2 million civilians in Afghanistan. It is true. You can Google this. If you don't believe me, Google this. Look up how many civilians the U.S. killed in Afghanistan versus how many civilians the Soviets killed. You will be surprised by how many civilians the Soviets killed. They killed so many civilians. And it's because the Soviets just did not care for human life at all. They didn't. Six and 3 here. Was the U.S. stronger than the Soviet Union at the start of World War II? The Soviet Union was probably the strongest country in the world at the end of World War II because of just the massive army that it had. The U.S. was more advanced, but did not have as much of a large army as them. They did, Adrian, yeah. Look at what the U.S. did in Vietnam. We have done terrible stuff like the USSR. The U.S. did bad things in the Vietnam War. I will, you know, concede to that point, and I talked about it in my Black Ops playthrough. If you watch my Black Ops playthrough, I talked about like Agent Orange, for example. I talked about the My Lai massacre. But the thing about the Vietnam War, what you're leaving out right there is you're leaving out the atrocities that the North Vietnamese actually committed against their people. And what a lot of people don't know, the worst war crimes in Vietnam were actually not even done by the US. You know who did them? It was the Viet Cong and the South Koreans. Those are the people who actually did the worst war crimes in the Vietnam War. It was the Viet Cong and the South Koreans. There was the My Lai massacre. The My Lai massacre was really bad. It was the U.S.'s worst war crime in the Vietnam War. But for example, in the My Lai massacre, I think it was like 400 or 500 people that died. But in the Hue City massacre, the Hue City massacre was the worst massacre of the Vietnam War. You know how many people died in the Hue City massacre? Between 4,000 to 5,000 people. And who did the Hue City massacre? It was the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. It was the communists who did that. And so there was a massacre where the communists killed 10 times more people than the worst American massacre in the Vietnam War. But you don't hear about that. Why don't you hear about the communist massacre? The reason you don't hear about the communists massacring their own people is because it goes against the narrative. Because the narrative is, oh, the Americans are evil, the Americans are bloodthirsty imperialists that want to destroy Vietnam, and so you don't hear about stuff like that generally. You only hear about, you know, the bad things like My Lai, which should be condemned, and the people for that should have been, you know, put on trial and executed for, you know, doing stuff like that. But the point that I'm getting at to you is that the communists did some really horrible things against their own people in the Vietnam War, and it's largely forgotten and it's largely not talked about. I mean, Gunnar here is from Vietnam. I mean, he can also tell you about the Hue City massacre and how they didn't in Vietnam. You're generally not allowed to talk about it today. They pretend like it didn't happen. I don't even understand what Aldridge's motive was in Stones Unturned in Mafia 3. Gunner. Hey Tamisha, what's up? Yeah, I guess I could, God's Child. I wasn't learned about Hue or My Lai massacre in school. I'm surprised you didn't learn about My Lai. In Vietnam they teach heavily about it, but Hue City they don't teach about the Hue City, or they say that it didn't happen. Or they'll say like mistakes were made. That's what they would say, but they wouldn't call it a massacre when it clearly was a massacre. What's the funniest thing I've ever seen? The single funniest thing I've ever seen is, I think, when I watched Borat. Borat, I think, was the funniest movie I've ever watched in my life. It was such a funny movie. Like, I've never seen a movie like Borat. It was just such a ridiculously funny movie. Oh, damn. She beat me there. Yeah, he was London, but it was just money. That's all it was, London. How do you feel about Ukraine renaming the Volyn massacre to the Volyn tragedy? What I will say is that most people in Poland don't even call it a massacre. Most people in Poland call it a genocide, which I consider a genocide. I do think that what happened in Volyn was genocide. And the problem, this is the biggest problem that Poland and Ukraine have to this day, that the Ukrainian government does not officially recognize the Volyn genocide as a genocide. They will either deny it, or they'll say that, like, it was mistakes had happened, it was, you know, downplaying it, like a lot of countries do downplay their atrocities in history. But was it done by that Bandera dude? Yes. Now, for people that don't know what I'm talking about, the historical event, there was during World War II in 1943 and 1944, when the tides were turning, when the Germans were on the retreat, there was parts of Ukraine and also Eastern Poland that were not, nobody controlled them, neither the Germans or the Soviets. It was basically no man's land. And what happened was UPA, which were the Ukrainian insurgent army, they were a force that allied with the Nazis, but then the Nazis betrayed them, and then they ended up fighting against both the Nazis and the Soviets. UPA, what they did is they went into Polish villages, and they basically just slaughtered everyone. These Ukrainian ultranationalists, they killed everyone, the men, women, and the children, and these were really brutal. They didn't just go into the villages and just shoot them, they killed them with axes. They would just run into a village with axes and just kill everybody. It was extremely, very, very brutal, gory. Kids would have their heads cut off. It was horrible. It was somewhere over 100,000 Polish people were murdered in this that happened. And so it was basically an ethnic cleansing. They were basically trying to kill every single Polish person that they saw. It was really, really bad. And what happens is the current government of Ukraine, they consider the guy who actually led that massacre and led that group a national hero. Like, he is considered the national hero of Ukraine. They're saying, oh, he fought for, like, independence and freedom of Ukraine against the Soviets. When the guy was a Nazi collaborator, and then he literally had mass murdered, thousands of Polish people. And Poland absolutely hates Bandera, and for good reason. But the Ukrainian government has made it very difficult to deal with Poland, because they don't want to admit that Bandera is a horrible person. They don't want to admit that his group had done these horrible, things. And the thing at Bandera has hundreds of statues dedicated to him in Ukraine. And so that was it. When Poland called it a genocide, the Ukrainian government got offended by that, and they were complaining about it. But that's what it is. Why are these people celebrated? I don't know. It's there are a lot of countries that deny their horrible things that they've done, and Poland is getting really, Poland has gotten really mad at Ukraine over that, really, really mad. There we go. Look at that hand. Now I beat her. Zelensky should openly say that those statues must be so that Russia intentionally Well, I will say this about Zelensky is Zelensky was asked a couple years ago in an interview. He was asked if Bandera, the guy who did that massacre, if he's a hero or a villain, and he said some people say that Bandera is a villain, some people say he's a hero. So he was touting a very neutral line on this. And the thing about Zelensky is Jewish, and Bandera's people targeted Ukrainian Jews. They also murdered their own people. So if you were Ukrainian, you were Jewish, the Ukrainian ultranationalists would kill you too. And so I don't understand why he was making excuses for Bandera. Bandera was just a horrible, evil man. But that's where Poland has, issues with the Ukrainian government. Is Poland recently built a memorial to all the people who had died, and the Ukrainian government was complaining about it, saying that it offended them and it's not the right time. Well, when is the right time? It was literally a lot of people died in that. People were brutalized. They were mass murdered, killed in that. Hey Patrick, in your opinion, what can Rockstar do to prevent the GTA 6 online launch from being a disaster like GTA Online was? Personally, I feel like they just need to make sure they have enough servers online to handle a number of players. Dedicated servers would help, but I will tell you, the first week that GTA 6 Online comes out, it will be a disaster. I'm telling you, it will be a disaster. The servers will be falling apart. It will be really, really bad. What is going on right here? I don't even know what this is right now. This is... This is the most random, bizarre thing ever right now. Thank you, Eric, for that super chat. What the... I don't know what this is about right now. Great. This is ridiculous right now. Let me turn on my There we go. I don't know what this is about right now, why I'm getting jumped by these people. Literally just got out of their poker game. I want to see him come up to me now with this. Damn. Yeah, he's spamming slippery.
Good to see you again.
I see what he's doing. He's just gonna activate slippery, and then he's gonna disable it at the last second, and he's just gonna headshot me. That's just what his trick is. That's just what he's gonna do. Oh, yeah, great. Where's your posse at? I don't know. I did get hit here, yeah. Damn, I thought that a shotgun would be better than this, but yeah, people play really cheap like this with this slippery and then Carcano and then yeah. Why did they speed up all the movement? They speed up all the movement because the little kids kept complaining about it. That was the primary reason why. See that's so cheap, you know, that maybe General. There we go. Okay. I think that pissed him off enough. Okay, guys. Yeah, that was it. I knew I don't usually use explosive rounds, but I'm getting jumped by these people and I don't want to fight them, and I just don't want to deal with that crap right now. Let me see here. We'll also do Battlefield 6. I'm gonna do the first part a little bit later today. Use a bow against the slippery guy. Does that even work? Does it get around the slippery? Did they kill your horse? Yes, multiple times. But I'll still stick around and answer. I'll play Battlefield 6's campaign. I'll still stick around and answer some questions. People, if you guys want to ask me anything before I go, I'll still stick around and answer any questions. And yes, tactical. I guess I could say in the future when I'm gonna do it. When I do a stream, a little bit when I do earlier, I could do one. I could say it. Did I do the third DLC for Mafia 3? No, not yet. Who, Minion Dave? Yeah, I mean, I killed a few of the corrupt cops in Mafia 3 and I didn't see any weapons drop. Well, I got a lore video coming out this weekend on Henry. Well, the Southern Union seemed to be worse, Star Killer. Yeah, London. No, I haven't seen Shogun, but I know the show. Oh, okay, Minion. I just didn't know. Rolling Thunder. Yes, that was the American carpet bombing in Vietnam, and it was most likely it was a mistake. It was a lot of people died in America's carpet bombing in Vietnam, Samuel. And then you had things like Agent Orange also, which those were really bad too. Well, I'm gonna place Ghost of Yotei in Japanese, but I'm gonna, there's no reason for me to put on a dub on any other, time, any other game here. You should be a history teacher. I don't know if I'll be good at that. But I guess I'll be going here, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you guys enjoyed the stream today, do drop a like. And I'm going to have the Battlefield part out for you guys later tonight. So if you guys want to see the first part of Battlefield 6, it will be out later tonight. Thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.